It's so funny.
Thank you, sir.
I think you're right. So here we go. I'm looking for my email.
I'd never met him before I introduced myself. I knew Bill because we're real quick together. That's in Rochester. It's like, but,
Really?
Mayor Stewart.
Please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody, to our March 2nd, 2026 City Council meeting. And we begin our City Council meetings with our open comment period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on issues that we are not holding a separate public hearing on later this evening. Each person has up to 2 minutes to speak for a total of 20 minutes. I will keep track of time through two methods. One is the stoplight here and in front of me, and the second is the red digital clock to the left of me. So please know I may need to cut you off because of the limited time, and we want to also make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak. I'd also ask that speakers be concise to allow more people to speak, and encourage you to limit comments generally to topics that are within the scope and jurisdiction of the council's ability to affect policy. Council members and staff do not respond directly to your comments, but will instead follow up if you need us to separately. And if you have materials to share with the council, please hand them over to our city clerk, Ann Queso, who is raising her hand right now. And so you will now be invited up to speak in the order of which you signed up. So we start with Mr. Barry Creasel. I mean, Barry Skolnick. I saw Barry and John walking in today together. So, Mr. Skolnick, go ahead.
Okay, I hope this is on. Anyway, yeah, I'm coming up to speak about the Rochester Economic Development Authority and the request for TIF being assigned to the City Walks apartment houses. When you look at the total percentage of apartments that is going to people who are of lower income or middle income, it's actually going to be less because the Heffron house, which is Mayor Martin Heffron's old house, that one used to have lower rents and still had lower rents up until when Noser signed the apartments over to, he was the former person who ran for mayor, sent that over to the developer and he sold it to them. So right now, if you look at the total percent of affordable housing in that unit, it's actually less rather than more. And some people say there's urban blight, but I've looked in those buildings. I don't see any blight. I don't see any rodents. I don't see any mice. I don't see any deterioration. So I'm not sure exactly how they're defining urban blight, unless it means they really want to build their project and they want money for it. And so whatever is in their way is blight. But in terms of doing something for the city, getting rid of the Heffron house, Mayor Heffron's house, is a shame. He basically constructed St. Mary's Hospital and the Chateau Theater, as well as numerous other houses. And again, he served as sort of like as one of the only rooming houses where he was the owner, and he also had served meals and things in there. And so it was one of the last ones that was left in Rochester. So while it didn't get on time, wasn't in a timely way submitted enough where I could get it landmarked, it still was something Again, he was a mayor of Rochester. He was president of the Board of Aldermen. He also served as somebody who was doing anesthesia, a jack of all trades for St. Mary's Hospital. And I'm just hoping that, not so much for the house itself, which I wish could have been saved, but I know it's not going to be. I'm just concerned about why you're actually giving TIF to it. They already got money from the DMC, I think through state grants, and I'm just very concerned that it just doesn't deserve to have TIF, because again, why? Do we give it to all projects? What separates that out? And the two buildings which they say are now on some public role, how do we know that want to stay there anyway? So you can't add that to the number of affordable housing units. So again, please look at it. I don't think it deserves TIF. Again, why? There's no degradation there whatsoever.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skolnick. Next up, we have Mike Schmidt.
Hello, council members, Madam Mayor. I come before you today as the chair of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Commission, also known as PBAC. For those of you who don't know, the PBAC is a commission of 8 people selected by the mayor for having strengths and skills and knowledge regarding alternative modes of transportation, focusing specifically on biking and walking. Among the many statements in our mission are the following. Increased bicycling access to transit is needed to support transportation solutions needed to support the Destination Medical Center initiative. And walk and bike friendliness are key economic drivers for cities of all sizes, strengthening the local economy by attracting businesses, investment, and skilled workers that have the option to locate just about anywhere. We've had the opportunity to listen to many presentations from the city and from Tool Design Group iteratively since September of 2025. And through that, we've heard a lot of different options and multiple options that are available. I come before you today to say that we support 6th Avenue through 4th Street. Not before that, we do not support it going until 2030. But additionally, we also support either 1st or 2nd Avenue as a transit from the north to south and south to north for bikers, walkers, and strollers. I do want to draw your attention to some of the discussion that we had. Through our research and study, bikers and walkers and rollers are commonly known to stop, shop, and linger more than a car driving 25 miles per hour down the road and contribute to a stronger economic impact to the businesses. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. John Creasel.
Madam Chair, Mr. President, members of the council, I would first encourage all of you not to accept the mayor's resignation. I think that would be a mistake, and I want to thank you for all your years of service to this community. So I hope it's you overwhelmingly will not accept her resignation. That said, I encourage all of us to take a deep breath. Parking's a big issue relative to how we're going to route people and bicycles throughout this community. I would support 2nd Avenue. I want to remind everybody that we gave the Mayo Clinic Bold Move Forward 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Avenue. That created many problems. One of the problems being parking. The clinic owns approximately 32 surface parking lots. Since this Bold Move Forward has gone forward, the parking ramp on at the end of 3rd Street is stuffed every day, along with most of the surface parking. That coupled with behind Time Theater, I can't say what the percentage is. As I understand, more than 50% of those spots are leased out to businesses because they need to have a place to park for themselves and employees. That said, I would only hope that the clinic then, because of the $150 million that was granted to this community to problem solve the transportation issue, is problem solved and does not linger after their construction is over. That said, I encourage you and remind you and ask you, do you want businesses downtown or not? It's pretty simple. There are many destination businesses that need parking, attorneys, dentists, so forth, And so give that thought. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kriesel. Next up, we have Mr. Wes Lund.
Thank you for this opportunity to again speak to you. And I'd like to share Governor Tim Walz's report. I'll be leaving this with your records keeper so it can be given into the record and you can all have a copy of it. It's easily available online. This is the report on fraud, waste, and abuse of the state of Minnesota. For the issue of investigation of fraud to be transmogrified into, is that a word? To be changed into another matter is quite a different thing. The real victims of fraud in Minnesota are not just the taxpayers. They're actually the kids who don't get autism services because the money that's set out for those people to receive autism services is squandered or spent on non-existent phantom students and non-existent programs, while the owners of, say, daycares are buying large multi-acre properties in the middle of nowhere in Minnesota, or even building mansions back on the Mediterranean and driving high-end cars around Minnesota. So to have that issue of fraud, the real victims are the homeless, for which the Department of Health and Human Services sets aside monies. Through the largesse of Americans, Minnesotans built a high-trust society where we wanted to provide for those who slipped through the cracks in our social system, to deny the real victims the funding that they deserve. We want to fully fund programs that actually service and benefit the citizens of our state. I mean, using TIF monies to create luxury high-end apartments on average is another issue involved there. TIF money should be used just for public access. I mean, HUD homes and things like that. But there's all manner of abuse going on from daycare centers through elderly care, through the taxi services that are non-emergency medical taxis that are operating. A lot of these have been found out. And I encourage you to think of the real victims in Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Lund. Next, we have Jason Bale Bakken.
Hello. So, along with that, the whole fraud thing. So, Rochester Police Department gets $27 million a year to, do their job. So, on February 5th, down here at the Law Enforcement Center, I was trying to file a report when I was approached by the Sheriff's Department, who then assaulted me by pressing his finger into my ear and getting permanent hearing damage. I'm deaf in this ear, have vertigo for life. In front of the LEC, mind you. The whole time, not one cop, not one RPD came out to see what was going on or what the problem was, even though I was already there waiting to speak to an officer and then being assaulted by the Sheriff's Department, which was, what do you want to call it, instigated by the chairman or Congress, or what's his name, down at Olmsted County Administration. To trespass me because I've been doing investigations on each department on whether or not they're fraud or not. So I would consider that willful obstruction of justice and impeding investigations on everything. And it's been like 6 months now that I first did my first initial complaint about it. Went through every department after getting kicked out of every department because they would not help anything to do with a citizen. You guys only help out the people down here. Why is there no help that goes to the community that has these problems? I always get referred back to, you got to figure this out on your own. So if fraud includes the fact that taxpayer money goes towards this place being able to help people figure stuff out, doesn't that go to the community as well? Or is it just to help, you guys cover your butts and stuff like that? Because every department I went to, there was no help whatsoever besides if I worked for the department or anybody down here. Why does taxpayer money pay for your guys' jobs that taxpayers don't get no benefit from? Because as far as I know, in any kind of contract, there has to be a benefit to each party.
Thank you, Mr. Bale Bakken. Next, we have Tim Schmidt.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to speak on item H3, the downtown corridor. I looked, there's a 4-page thing in the packet, but if I read it right, the community engagement's basically 3 council meetings and 6 bike advisory meetings. We're talking changes to a built-in area. There are already stakeholders there. I didn't see any engagement with those. I mean, on 6, we have Kutzke neighborhood. First, we have RDA, not only just, RDA is the downtown business, but RDA is Thursdays on First. First Avenue is also a historic district. I mean, are we going to talk to, usually with development, we talk to a lot of groups, CUDE and neighborhood associations, in this case RDA, Preservation Commission. I would like to see an effort before we do anything with these streets downtown to bring in other stakeholders besides the bicycle community. And that way, hopefully, we can build a project that is accommodating and best interest of everybody involved. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lucy Creasel.
Good evening, Mayor, President, Council. Good to see everybody. I'm here to speak on the North-South Downtown Mobility Network connection. And first and foremost, really challenging issue. And I just want to say I greatly appreciate all of the complicated and sincere and respectful dialogue that I've had with the City of Rochester team, with bike advocates, with my business neighbors. So many people have been engaged on this issue and they're passionate about it. I don't think there's one right answer, but I trust that you all will think creatively about how to proceed so that we can both celebrate this momentum that we've built together from all different avenues of the issue, and then also hope that we can, sorry, I'm looking at my time and I don't know what it is, but anyway.
We're having a little glitch. Just
No
keep
worries.
going.
Okay.
Just keep going.
I'm also hoping that whatever iteration is selected, that we will consider applying different ways to gather data about how people move around downtown, because I think that's what's missing from a lot of the conversations. Where do people go? How long? What do they use it for? Why? What is convenient, et cetera? Because I think the reason I was interested in First was for consistency and predictability, right? I teach kids how to ride bikes. If we want new rollers and new riders to go there, we want it to be inviting and something that is predictable for both cars to understand where we're going and for us to understand what we're doing, right? And so that's why I was interested in that. No matter what we do moving forward, I'd like to ensure that we gather data as we try these next steps, as these experiments, so that we can really find out what works, what doesn't work, what really works, what really doesn't work, because I think we kind of have to try it on to find out more before we really figure out the solution. And especially looking at what you all were discussing last week about the new historic district proposal and iterations. If we're going to try any of those more experimental, multimodal streets for Rochester, we're going to need as much data as we can to kind of understand what works and what doesn't. So just want to reiterate, I want to celebrate the hard work that everyone, they drew a short straw trying to figure out this project. The City of Rochester and everybody else who's been involved has been really respectful, and I want to celebrate that. I think we all have the same goal for a vibrant and functional downtown. And then also, let's try to figure out how to get new learners down there by gathering some new metrics and data. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Wojak.
Greetings, Council Member, Mayor, Michael Wojak. I'm the Executive Director of the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota and also a member of the state's Advisory Council on Traffic Safety. And here with largely positive sentiments towards what you'll be hearing on H2 and H3 this evening. In particular, we'd like to commend Tool Design on the incredible work they did on creating a really vibrant and nice transition for the Kutzke neighborhood on 6th Avenue. We commend them for that work. We do want to point out, while we support this, we also acknowledge that the intersections at Civic Center Drive and 2nd Street are not all ages and abilities, nor is the slope south of 2nd Street. So while this is a fantastic connection, it does not in and of itself reconnect the network. We understand that Sixth Avenue has always been designated as a secondary route, and we think this is a fantastic execution. We are very concerned about replacing the 3rd and 4th Avenue corridor, which was the long approved plan for bicycling downtown. And we're somewhat agnostic in terms of how we accomplish safe routes through downtown, whether that be on 1st Avenue or whether that be on 2nd Avenue. Either one could work fine. Obviously on 2nd Avenue, we have to collaborate with the Mayo Clinic on Annenberg Plaza. On 1st Avenue, we have to make sure that we're not doing 1 or 2 blocks, but we're actually creating a safe bikeway the entire length of the way. We have to decide which direction we're going to go, but one of them will work. The great thing about 2nd Avenue is it takes almost no additional money. What's there already as part of Discovery Walk is pretty fantastic, and we can work with that. So we do appreciate this moving forward. It is important that we have something on 1st or 2nd to truly connect the downtown. And just know that we enjoy being part of the process, and as much as possible, we hope that you, the City Council, will be making the important policy decisions and engaging the community and not handing those responsibilities off to administrators. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Mayor, especially, thank you for your service. Broke my heart a little bit today, but you've made our community better. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Next, we have Aaron Mead.
Hey, council members and mayor. So I'm also here to talk about the connecting north-south bike routes through downtown Rochester. And following on what Michael said, well, I should say I'm also here as a board member of We Bike Rochester and an advocate. And I think broadly, everybody in our advocacy community thinks very highly of the design that's gone into 6th Avenue, but it doesn't meet the requirements of all ages and abilities, considering Civic Center Drive and going to Soldiers Field. And one of the main things here is that, of course, these bike lanes or any safe route through downtown will benefit people who are already biking. But when we talk about bringing more people in, it's that last mile of these missing links, getting from lower town into downtown, getting from Soldiers Field into downtown, that will make people fearful of not riding just because of that one missing link. And bike lanes through the heart of the city, where many of our local small businesses will support people going to them. Again, people on the bike are more likely to stop, more likely to linger, go into another shop. And so one of the things that's really important about the options that were presented so far is that what we see on 1st Avenue is only 1 or 2 blocks of bike lanes, which really does not address this missing link issue of people getting into downtown and feeling safe coming to our businesses, coming and being a part of the vibrant street and city that we have here. So if 1st Avenue isn't an option all the way down, we also support 2nd Avenue, which already is actually a great bike route, just with some calming and modal filtering would be amazing with very, very little cost to build. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mead. Next, we have Marty Cormack.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. I'm Marty Cormack, and I'm going to give a perspective of someone who travels by bicycle. I saw the plans on 6th Avenue. Sounds really good. Problem is the hill on the south end is not all ages and all abilities. And because it's so far west of where I'm going to be going when I go downtown, it's not something that would help me at all. I want to be able to go to the places mostly along 1st Avenue, and then also to the Mayo Clinic. I'm a regular blood donor, so I need to get to the Hilton building on 2nd Avenue. And so I would encourage you to go ahead with the 6th Avenue plans, but also be sure that you help all the folks like me. And I understand there's hundreds of people who park their bikes downtown every day, even in the winter months. So there's a lot of folks who do travel by bicycle. And so I'd hope that you keep us in mind and make sure that we reconnect the north-south now that it's got, that the Mayo Clinic has broken that up with the 3rd and 4th Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cormack. And that concludes our open comment period. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to call to order and the roll call.
Good evening. Councilmember Keen.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Here.
Councilmember Palmer.
Here.
Councilmember Doring.
Here.
Council President Schubring.
Here.
Mayor Norton.
Thank you. Next, we have our city administrator's report. Deputy Administrator Parrish, take it away.
Yeah, President, Mayor, members of council, really great to be here tonight. On behalf of Allison, just want to convey a few things here. One, really encouraging residents to provide feedback through a survey that Experience Rochester is currently soliciting feedback on our local tourism planning. And so it's an opportunity really to provide insight into the visitor experience, which also is relevant to the resident experience. That'll be wrapping up by March 22. And if folks are interested in participating, they can go to our website at rochestermn.gov. It feels like we want to be in the outdoor farmers market mode, but not quite yet. But you still have the opportunity to take in the indoor farmers market this Saturday from 9 to 12 at the fairgrounds. So definitely check that out at Crawford Hall. It's still an exciting time and really forecasting what's coming this spring. Our library always hosting a number of amazing events. And if you want, also on Saturday after the farmers market, you can head over to the library and do puzzles and pretzels. And it's for all ages. And if you can even design an image of your own mini puzzle to take home. So that's a great activity for many. And then you'll probably all be a little bit disappointed because this might conflict with your council meetings, but you might be able to get to the Argentine Tango on March 9th after the study session for dancing downtown, but probably not so much for March 16th on the Waltz. But the community can enjoy dancing downtown Monday night on Peace Plaza from 6 to 8. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. And next we have the mayor's report. Mayor Norton.
I was a little concerned when I saw acting mayor's report. I thought maybe you didn't want to give up the role. It's good
No,
to be
it's
back.
your show for the next 11 months.
For a few months left, yeah. So I have just a brief report this evening. I'm glad to see that things went relatively well while I was gone, and I didn't get too many notices of crisis, so thank you for covering for me. I do want to announce, and there's a lot going on this week, so I know not everyone is available, but on Tuesday, tomorrow evening from 6 to 7:30 at the Heinz Center, the police department will be hosting with me a town hall, and it's called Using Advanced Technology in Policing. Primarily, we're going to talk about the use of drones in Rochester. There's also a grant out there for some additional drone support, but to talk about why we use it, what we use it for, how it's used, how the data is saved and collected, that kind of thing. As well as I've asked the police department to talk a little bit about cameras, because I've gotten a significant amount of communication this past, I'd say 6 months or so, about the use of cameras and data. And we had even some folks here who testified earlier this year with some confusion, thinking that we turn over this data that from cameras on the streets to someone, which we do not. But I asked them to maybe talk about the camera use in town. When you go to a stop sign and you look around, you see a number of technologies, and we don't all know what those are. So they'll talk about that too. So I think it should be interesting, and I welcome you all there at the Heinz Center tomorrow evening. Also, with the police department, it is the Community Police Academy, which has been held over the years several times. This is an opportunity for folks. Thursdays, March 26th to May 21st, the community can sign up for a police academy, and they will learn how the police works, how it does service in the community. There are topics like crime scene processing, traffic safety, narcotic enforcement, and canine demonstrations. So you do not come out with the skills to be a police officer when you're done, but you will know better what the police officers do and how they do it. And so we welcome folks to sign up for this 9-week academy. Again, Thursdays starting March 26th at 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. So it'll take your Thursday evenings, but I think you'll find it very interesting. Free and open to the public. Folks have to be 18 to participate. And there is a QR code there you can use, or get a hold of our office or call the police department for more information. Just quickly, I will be gone for the next meeting, so I won't be able to announce this there. We have the National League of Cities annual conference, and a couple of us are going. And this is going to happen on March 18th. It is National Transit Employee Appreciation Day, and we want to show appreciation for our transit drivers and thank all of them for their professionalism and their service. So I'm not announcing it March 16th. I'm doing it today instead. And lastly, just a reminder, we are coming to the end of enrollment for the trip to Germany. It will be June 12th through 22nd, as it says on the slide. We'll be visiting both of our sister cities, Moosburg, which is a sister city that was started by Mayor Chekazama many years ago, and ending at Munster, which has been a sister city for about 9 years now, linked to sustainability and energy. I see Mitzi in the audience, who was on one of the very first trips. So it'll be a really wonderful experience, and if you want to come, there's still time for about 2 or 3 more days to sign up. That's all I have.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And as others have said, we appreciate your service for the last 8 years, and it's interesting to watch you. You seem calmer today than and brighter, and so look forward to working with you for the next 11 months. But congratulations on your decision today.
Thank you.
With that, we are moving on to the order of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councilmember Wall, seconded by Councilmember Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Moving on to our consent agenda, Councilmember Wall is pulling item F8, and I, Council President Schubring, am pulling F4. Are there any other items to pull? If not, I'd invite a motion to approve in block items F1 through F3, F5 through F7, and F9 through F15. Moved by Councilmember Fredericks.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Moving on to public hearings. We have no public hearings on tonight's agenda. Moving on to H, reports and recommendations. H1, transit, Rochester Public Transit spring service changes. And we have Miss Rachel Fouch to give us a presentation.
Wonderful. I was waiting on the clicker, but I can go ahead and get started.
Yep. I move fast.
Good evening, council members and mayor. Rachel Fouch, interim director of transit and parking. Oh, the microphone's not on.
There we go.
Now we're good. Rachel Fouch, interim director of transit and parking, here to cover the proposed spring service changes that we're hoping to implement at the end of April. So the intention and the purpose of the spring service changes was really to do a variety of things. And overall, it was to increase ridership throughout our system, or is to increase ridership throughout our system. And we're doing that by increasing frequency on some of our routes that are designated within the primary transit network in our comprehensive plan. So increasing some of those frequencies to 20 minutes. We're also hoping to look at increasing boardings. And so those are reflected, and we're going to cover that in a couple of slides, but you'll be able to see what we mean by boardings and increasing that. Also increasing service reliability by increasing frequency. If you miss your bus, you might have an opportunity to get on another one quicker, and so it's going to increase your confidence within the system. We're also increasing collaborations. And so this service change really focused on internal collaborations, higher collaborations with our transit operator, Transdev, and working with them as we look forward to the more background scene for our route changes, which is blocks and runs within our system. So those blocks are that section of time that the bus is out on the road, and a run is the time that that specific driver is out. So we want to ensure that the proposed times that we're proposing, that our drivers are capable of doing them. So there's a big difference between us sitting behind a computer and making a plan and when that plan is actually enacted. And so really looking at a heightened level of collaboration to include more of our drivers in this process. And ultimately, we're hoping to increase revenue throughout our system. So we started the whole community engagement process for this at the end of January. We did the last 2 weeks of January. We had RPT staff do ride-alongs within our bus system and interact with our riders and collect that feedback directly. We also had an online survey available. So if there was too many riders on the bus at any time, we could ask them to scan a QR code and fill out that, but it was also pushed out through Polkle as well. And so we received nearly 500 respondents on our Polkle survey and our ride-alongs. Then we did 2 virtual information sessions and 2 in-person engagement sessions. The virtual ones were recorded and posted on our website, and we had a survey available for those that were in attendance and those that were not able to attend, along with the opportunity to interact via email directly with myself and our transit planner, Sandra Nahr, who's behind us today, to really create a unique experience. So if a rider was unsure if the proposed changes were going to impact them directly, we could provide an answer. Yep, like this stop is going to be slightly shifted, but you'll be able to access it, but it'll be on the other end of the block now, and this is the route that will service you. So really creating a high level of customer service. And so all of that engagement led us to our proposed service changes. So currently we have 26 routes throughout our system that vary in frequency from every 30 to every 60 minutes. Some only run during peak, and as a reminder, peak hours are 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then followed up with evening service starting at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And when we're looking at these routes and their performance, we're looking at standards, and we can't just be making choices without data. So the Met Council recommends that 15 rides or boardings per hour for each one of our service routes. And we actually came to that same conclusion on what we need to achieve within our system. Currently, none of our routes meet 15 boardings per hour. Our average is 8. So we have some routes that are a little bit closer to 15, but we do have around half of our current routes, so 13 routes that are sitting below 8. And some of those routes, as a foreshadowing here, are looking to be discontinued, and some of them are being merged with other routes to hopefully increase our boardings per hour. But we do need to reach around 15 boardings per hour for us to be sustainable as a transit system. So really focusing on those underperforming routes and increasing frequency to hopefully increase our boardings per hour along our routes. With our spring service changes, there is a slight modification to this. As I said, we had a substantial amount of public engagement, and leading up to after the packet was posted, we did get additional feedback for Route 102, which we did propose to be merged with 116. And there was a lot of feedback to maintain that route. So I'll go through the steps and the modifications to keep the 102 route. So we're looking at 22 routes. Not 21 routes for the spring service changes. And you'll also see a reduction of stops and adding of stops. And a lot of that has to do with shifting a service from a loop service on some of our routes to bidirectional. So in one situation, we'd only have one stop on one side of the loop going up and around. In a bidirectional, we have a stop on each side of the road. So that increases the amount of stops within the system, but it also increases the accessibility for individuals to access one of those stops. And we'll go over each one of these in detail, so I won't go over them now. So in the Northeast region, this is the one in which I was referring to the 102, and so I'll kind of jump a little bit ahead here to kind of cover that. So on the current service map, you'll see the 102 is that Burgundy route. And that's the route that we were asked to maintain with the ridership, specifically around that Northern Heights, Northern Hills loop that you'll see on the black route or the 101 that was being removed. And so that was what we were asked to maintain. So the new 102 will only be during peak hours, so those morning and afternoon hours during the week. and it will go up Broadway, go over, and do those Northern Heights, Northern Hills loops, and then loop up around Rocky Creek Drive, East Circle Drive, and then come back down. It's Broadway. And so those routes are still being serviced. That frequency will be every hour. It's currently every hour. And so we're not shifting the frequency on the 102, but it is shifting to more of a bi-directional route than a loop service that it was before. So if you're on those Northern Heights, Northern Hills loops, you might be on the bus a little bit longer for us to be able to maintain service to there. But if you're jumping on anywhere on Broadway, you have probably a shorter route time. So the 101 and the 206. This is one of the more interesting kind of combinations that we came up with for the spring service changes. And you'll see that black route was pretty expansive. And now it's shifting to what you see on the right-hand side with the 101 and the 206 combined. This route, if you've noticed, does not go to Central Park. And so this route allows quick access to those that live in the Northeast to the Southeast. So it travels from that top all the way down to the Southeast area, to like South Target, and providing service there. And now it's moving to a 20-minute frequency. And so it's really providing quick and steady access for our residents in a bi-directional service opposed to a loop service. So they don't have to wait for that bus to travel all the way around. They can get on it when it's coming by them at the appropriate time. And that'll be, we'll go ahead. So for the Southeast, so you'll notice there's really minimal changes to the Southeast. The biggest one is just shifting that frequency to off-peak service to being every 60 minutes opposed to every 30 minutes. So that really caters to when our riders need to be on the 203, but still provides appropriate access throughout the day. So that is the only shift in the Southeast region. So the Southwest, so the 306 is the Burgundy route that you can kind of see, and this is one of our now bi-directional routes. So if you're an initial look, you might think it doesn't feel or look much different, but if you look on the left map versus the right map, you'll notice we're no longer doing that chunk on Broadway there. And so just south of Grand Marina, now it's a single bi-directional route and not doing a looped route service there anymore, with frequency at 30 minutes during peak and 60 minutes during off-peak times. And this really allows connectivity for residents as they move from the Central Park down to the South Walmart area. And then for the 307, so that route is blue that you see on the left and on the right. So that is another bi-directional service. Again, on initial look, it might not feel like it's looking bi-directional, but you can see it's traveling up with that green route on the left-hand map, and now it's a bi-directional route, and it runs every 30 minutes during peak and every 60 minutes during off-peak. But what is really an asset for this route is its connectivity for those residents to areas like the mall. So now that bus ride would only be 15 minutes, opposed to a much longer ride previous to this shift. So it's really creating more quick access for our residents in that space. For the Northwest region, for the 409 and the 410, so the 409 is that orange route. It's a little bit close to red when you're looking at the map, but it's the more kind of lower centrally located route. And the 418, which is the Burgundy route that you see. So those routes are being combined and it will now have enhanced frequency. So they're going to run instead of every 30 minutes, they'll now be every 20 minutes. And so that's one of those routes dedicated in the comprehensive plan that we've increased frequency for. And then this is really an interesting route. So if you're riding in that area, this is providing access to Costco, Cub Foods, and Hy-Vee, all within that area at a high frequency route. So it's a really impressive shift, in my opinion, and really provides access to our residents to get to the things that they need to get to. The 411 is the chartreuse, as I've been affectionately calling it, color that you see on the right-hand side. You can see a pretty substantial shift in this route. It was really kind of centrally located south, and now it's pretty expansive as it moves up through the system. And this one also no longer needs a transfer. So it's an opportunity for individuals to have quick and easy access without having to transfer at Central Park. and still have service to Walmart North, and then travel throughout that entire system. And then the 413 has been, and that's the red route on here, has been realigned to serve IBM during peak times. Probably the only real discontinuation of service that we're looking at for the spring service changes is the 505, or sometimes called the shopper route. And so that route is being removed. When we talked about frequency and we talked about boardings per hour, this route received 2 on average. And it only ran Tuesdays and Fridays and had really low ridership during those times. However, it is still serviced. Those stops are still serviced by 8 of our routes with the spring service changes that run Monday through Friday. So they're still, and in 2 situations on both the 101 and the 409, those are those increased frequency routes. And so that is an opportunity to have increased frequency and still have access to those locations, but be thoughtful in how we're providing service to our riders. And then our last modification is for weekend service. And so right now our weekend service runs 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And this is an area that was specifically dialed in on those surveys. What would it look like if we're reduced down to 1 day on the weekend? And the resounding answer was, I wouldn't be able to do what I need to do with 1 day on the weekend. So one of the things we did look at is reducing the amount of time on the weekends. So reducing it from 6 to 7 a.m. And that's really, we had very low ridership between 6 and 7 a.m. And 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and 9 a.m. are actually kind of our peak on the weekend service. And then it picks back up at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then that would, instead of servicing until 7 p.m., we would service until 5 p.m. And just to, for clarity on that 5 p.m., that would mean that's when the last trip would run for transit for that day. So we'd start at the last trips would run at 5. So really service would go until closer to 6, depending on, most of our weekend frequency is around 60 minutes. And so that trip would be about 60 minutes long. Everything else on our weekends would stay the same. So ultimately, what does this mean in terms of our ridership and hopefully our key outcomes? So 99% of our existing boardings would still be within a quarter mile or a 5-minute walk to one of our bus stops. The areas in that 1% of reduction were around 55th Street Northeast and 19th Street Northwest. And that's about 26 of our stops now fall outside of that quarter mile. So that 5-minute walk, which on average, as indicated here, is around 11 boardings that we have a day. What I really want to highlight is that increase on the very bottom one, where we're shifting from 3% of our stops are within a quarter mile of 20 minutes or better service, or growing that all the way up to 14% with these spring service changes. So we're really dramatically increasing our service with a 20-minute or better service. And then that's translated over to access to jobs. And so that's growing from 29% currently with our current service to 50% of the jobs within the city of Rochester will now be within 20 minutes or greater service within a 5-minute walk. So really thoughtful plans have gone into this, and I really want to take a moment and congratulate Sandra Nahr, our transit planner, because the amount of work and dedication has gone in, and the amount of collaboration that we've done internally and externally to get to this point. The next steps for us will be additional outreach. So if there are any, as we move into the final version of our spring service changes, we'll be doing additional outreach, and that will fairly well mirror what we did in the fall. So we'll do a social media campaign. We had a lot of success with A-frame signs at Central Park, yard signs at our more popular stops, and our park and ride locations, and then additionally banners within the buses. And so we intend on moving forward with all of those. Also excitingly is that Remix, which is the transit planning software that we use, has added a new feature that will allow individuals to interact with the spring service changes to see exactly what the impacts will be. And so they can start kind of tinkering around and have a kind of a more unique experience. And so we'll be focusing on pushing that out as well with the educational component. So thank you for your time, and do we have any questions?
Question? Well, I'll start. Thank you very much, and I mean it's a lot of work to really try to maximize what we have here. You mentioned up front that we have the average ride is 8 riders, and that to be really optimal, we should have 15 riders. With these changes, do you have a sense of where we're going to be afterwards?
So we are what I could use are probably indicators that we had with the fall service changes. And so we did see an increase of about 2 boardings per hour with our fall service changes. I would anticipate potentially even a little bit more with our spring service changes with those increased frequencies. So our best performing route sits at around 11 boardings per hour, and that's the 105. So that services our North Broadway Park and Ride. And then the second best performing route is the 550, which services both the Fairgrounds and the 75th Park and Ride.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Oh, Councilmember Fredericks, go ahead.
Thank you, President. You said your second route, what's the average rides per hour on the second one?
On the second route,
The Fairgrounds.
on the Fairgrounds route, I would have to probably lean on Sandra. 10? Yeah, she's right. 10 boardings per hour right
11
now.
on the first, 10 on the second. Okay.
And, it's like additional reference, as I indicated, the 505, which is that shopper route that we're discontinuing, is 2. And so that's our lowest one, and that one's being removed from service.
Councilmember Keene?
Yeah, I appreciate going through this. I tried to kind of study it on my own, but without the guidance, I wasn't exactly sure where we're going. It seems like there were some key numbers here with the metric and then also this idea of back and forth. But I'm still trying to compare what we did in the fall, where we really were focused on our expenses and getting them aligned. Can you tell me the motivation for the changes here? Is it to meet these metrics, or is there an expense or a ridership goal too?
So, I think ultimately our goal would be 15 boardings per hour, but we're not going to get there overnight. And, the intention of these service changes wasn't to necessarily save money. I don't think you can cut costs and cut routes and increase ridership in the same movement. So this really focused on creating a net neutral. So this doesn't increase our operational costs, but it does provide an increased frequency. And so that's really what we're after. We're looking to see how this shifts our ridership and hopefully increases them per hour per boarding.
And I noticed, again, it felt like the routes are staying, or the stops are staying very much the same. As an average user, how much do you have to understand about what's changing here?
The biggest thing are those routes that are merging into one, because they will have new names. So that's probably the hardest thing to grasp. Our riders they remember the routes they have. They remember the routes that were here 10 years ago, and they remember all of those names. So the biggest shift in this is to understand that in a lot of ways, hopefully this makes things a little bit easier, that you can get on both sides of the street, but those routes will have modified names.
Okay. The other worry, and I'll just share this and see, there's also this idea that stability is better than change with a service like this. Is there a worry that as we go through a fall and then a spring shift, and then we look again next year, that we lack stability?
I could see that thought process. However, service changes are normal in transit systems. We do them. It really depends on the system and the community that they're in. But in larger metros, these could happen 4 times a year. So constant and thoughtful service changes that serve the riders in the best way possible, and that's what we're aiming to do. It feels opposite of what we should anticipate in the system, where we think consistency helps increase those things, but it's really kind of the opposite within the transit world, that we're kind of shifting with the needs of the people, and I think that's a really responsible and responsive thing to do.
Very good, very good. I'm supportive of what you're trying to do here. I really liked that, there's these metrics up front, that we are using our services ourselves, that we're engaging with the drivers. This isn't, most of these things make it sound like we're on the right path.
Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you. I had a curious question. How do you pick a quarter mile away from a bus stop? Why not a half a mile or a tenth of a mile, or how do you pick up a quarter?
Yeah, so a quarter mile is the FTA standard that we should be looking at for providing service within a route.
And then your express hubs, how many express routes do we have?
Currently, we have two, and that's the 105 and the 550.
And how often do they run?
Right now, they run, depending on peak or off-peak service.
On peak?
Around 15 minutes for the 550 and the 105.
And that starts at 5 a.m.?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I miss the 5 a.m., I can hit the 5:15, and how full are those express routes?
It really depends on the time of the day. And I can tell you from my experience of doing some of the ride-alongs, some of our buses are standing room only during certain of our peak times. I'd have to look at those specific boardings per hour, and I can get that to you for those specific routes. But it does depend on the time of the day. But on the 550, we know that our average boardings per hour is 11. And so you could extrapolate that, but that would be the whole day's worth of coverage. That wouldn't include during peak times. Or it does include during peak times, but it wouldn't show you, I don't have that metric with me right now.
Okay. And right now, if I remember correctly from your last presentation, we're doing 15% out of your reserves?
Approximately that, yeah.
Okay. And how big is your reserves?
It's around 1.7 million.
Okay. And so the 15% equals what?
Of 1 point, I should have grabbed my calculator.
No. I meant if you have a reserve and you already are using 15% of that, what do you?
So I think, like, as we look at those numbers from the study session in January, those numbers really depend on, those are primarily capital projects and not operation costs. Our annual average for operation costs is around $12 million. These service changes actually are closer to $11 million for operation numbers, because our operations grant has a 15% match and our capital improvement projects have a 20% match requirement from us. And so when we look at those projections, we are trying to be thoughtful as well and present not a best case scenario. We understand that as projects take longer and they go out for bid, there's a potential they're going to be higher. And so we did reduce some of those capital improvement projects. But right now we are at a state in which operations is pretty much covered by our ridership throughout these routes, but it's our capital improvement projects that are dipping into that fund, the transit fund.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Wall.
Thank you. Do we still provide paper copies of the routes and stops? Is that a huge undertaking with these kinds of changes?
It is, but we do work with a local graphic designer to put that together. We are shifting right now. It's in a quadrant system. We are shifting back to a booklet, and so all of our routes will be contained within one easy to use guide. We're also really focusing on ensuring that the font size is appropriate within there. I know that's a feedback that we received on the previous ones. And so, but those would be updated. We usually order around 3,000. The library is probably our biggest user of those. But we've also been in conversations with some of our local developments that those will be included in their welcome packets with the spring service changes.
Councilmember Doring.
Thanks. I really appreciate the work that goes into optimizing the system for efficacy. And I was worried about some of the same issues that Councilmember Keene brought up about the frequency of changes to the system. So I was happy to hear that in larger metro areas, those changes could happen 4 times a year, and that could seem pretty normal. I also heard you say that the main reason for making these changes is for efficacy, but there is a dollar issue attached to that. So I'm wondering, with these changes, what will be the impact on the workforce of RPT? Are we losing drivers? What does that look like for our employees?
No, I think that's a great question. And these service changes maintain a status quo on the necessary number of drivers. So by consolidating some of the routes, we can still increase frequency and maintain the number of drivers that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Miller.
Yeah, just a quick question. With these service changes going into effect, how long would you say it takes to understand the impact of those changes on ridership?
That's a great question. And we actually were able to start collecting data on the fall service changes within a month. So, we don't have a lot of opportunities to kind of judge and interpret what human behavior will show. But it's fortunate that we have this planned and we can start collecting data pretty relatively quickly. Additionally, we did kind of bump up where last year we did the fall service changes in November. We intend on doing the fall service changes in October, so we can have a little bit quicker turnaround if we need to make additional modifications.
And so when might council expect to hear additional updates on the operating effectiveness, on how some of these are changing, obviously through written communications, but the RFP process, or when might we expect to hear about transit this year?
Additionally, so the next time I think that we have planned to be up in front of the dais would be the award of bids. So the RFP process is being evaluated right now. We're hoping to have that selected in end of May, beginning of June. You'd anticipate us coming back for that. We did receive five proposals on that.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to recognize the work that went into this, and I also want to recognize the alignment to our comprehensive plan. I feel like so often we talk about land use planning and transportation planning, and I'm really glad to see transportation getting its moment in the sun, so to speak. And I do think that as we plan around our primary transportation networks, those don't self-enforce, so it's exactly these kinds of changes and focus on how we're planning and growing and where we're providing frequent transportation service. And I just want to say, I think to the conversation that we had and our last study session around bolder thinking, I think moving routes to bidirectional routes might feel very technical, but I would expect, as a former transit user myself, those make the system work, even if you don't have the exact arrival time on an app. It's more intuitive, and I think moving to 20-minute service is quite a lift, and I would congratulate you and your team on making this work in a revenue-neutral way and hopefully a revenue-building way.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just take another moment to just recognize Sandra Nahr for the work that she's done on this. So,
Great. Well, thank you, and thank you for giving us out-of-the-box and innovative, creative thinking, and we look forward to hearing progress as you move forward.
perfect. Thank you.
Next up, we have H2, which is reimagining 6th Avenue West from Civic Center Drive to 2nd Street Southwest. And we have Mr. Mike Collins and Mr. Steve Sampson Brown.
All right. Good evening, Council President, Mayor, Council members. Here to talk about reimagining 6th Avenue West. I'm going to introduce the team of consultants that are with us tonight to share information with you, and then I'll turn it over to Mike. So first is Project Manager Mike Collins. From the Tool Design Group, we have Mitzi Alex and Noah Hallback. And online, we have from Gamble Associates, David Gamble. And I would be remiss before we start to acknowledge the effort of our engineering department, community development, and parking and transit in supporting the information that's coming forward to you tonight for your consideration. With that, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Yep. Thanks, Steve. Council President, Council members, let me just find my notes here. Do I have the changer? So the requested action for reimagining 6th Avenue is to adopt a corridor concept plan for 6th Avenue West from Civic Center Drive to 2nd Street Southwest, and then ultimately authorizing the preparation of final design plans and bid documents for the reconstruction of 6th Avenue West from Civic Center Drive to West Center Street. So this slide is really just to give the entire council a general idea of the timeline. So this project, many of you have probably participated in some of the public engagement events that we've held throughout the year. A lot of that work kicked off really in September. It continued through November. And we've actively been coordinating with adjacent developments. There are a lot of developments along the 6th Avenue corridor, not to mention the Mayo development, the private work that's happening along that space. This also details the number of times we've went back to PBAC, and obviously we had that study session with you guys in November. We do expect the design work to run through kind of winter of 2027. We'll come back to City Council at that time for approval and advertise of our construction plans. And then construction is expected, at least at this stage, to run from kind of spring of 27 through to the end of the construction season that year. So that's kind of the timeline we're looking at. We did a fair amount of public engagement for this. Initially, we did have this project combined with the Reconnecting the Mobility Network project. So some of the community engagement statistics above were us engaging on both of those projects. So you'll see a similar slide in the next one. But we did do quite a lot. I mean, we did everything from door knocking to site visits to online surveys to one-on-one meetings with businesses to open house and neighborhood meetings. So there was a great deal of effort put into making sure that the community was informed about this project and that that we were able to take their feedback and incorporate that into our ultimate design. This is really kind of like as we get into the details of what 6th Avenue and as we reimagine it, what it's going to look like. So this is kind of a schematic here that kind of details what a typical section of the roadway is. As you move up and down the roadway, things ebbs and flow a little bit, but this is a typical section. So that's what we wanted to give the council to look at. And that would include an 8-foot sidewalk on the west side, followed by an 8-foot boulevard, 2 10-foot lanes with 2-foot gutter taper, a 7-foot boulevard on the east side, followed by a 12-foot bikeway, a two-way bikeway, I should add, and then some furnishings, some parkway features, and then an 8-foot sidewalk on the east side as well. So that's your typical section, although like I said earlier, it does kind of ebb and flow as the street does as you move up and down that corridor. Just as we're kind of getting into the design, what was submitted in the agenda packet was essentially a roll plot that would give you guys an idea of the entire corridor. For purpose of kind of keeping this a little streamlined, we took a couple snapshots to give a very good idea for council so you can understand how this corridor is planned to look. And so I'll just kind of start with the image on the left, which is that intersection at 6th Avenue and 3rd Street Northwest. That does include that 8-foot sidewalk, that 8-foot buffer, the 2 10-foot lanes, a 7-foot boulevard, followed by a 12-foot cycle track, an 8-foot boulevard, and then ultimately an 8-foot sidewalk. The reason we are going with this, with this concept design, is it builds a sense of continuity up and down the corridor. It builds a project that will make people feel comfortable as they use it. And then whatever mode of transportation. And then the 8-foot sidewalk is because we are aware that this is a very medical-centric area. As you move further south in 6th Avenue, it does jut up against the Osmond Building, and that's a very, very important consideration as we consider who's using this space. And this is also, obviously a primary transportation corridor, both for vehicles, cyclists, and people and pedestrians. And so incorporating all of those into kind of a complete street design, this is kind of the proposal we've come up with. Another thing I should note, and that is your image on your right-hand side, is the intersection controls that we've decided upon or that we're recommending are signalized intersections at the intersection of West Center and 6th Avenue. And that is the same intersection design at 2nd Street Northwest and West Center. And the reason for that, again, is because of the people using this corridor. So this juts up against a major medical institution that's undergoing a significant transformation. We anticipate that a high number of people using mobility devices and people with visual impairments will be using this. And so we felt that signalized intersections was the best way to accommodate folks with those special requirements, while also achieving the goal of the cycle track and accommodating the vehicle traffic and all around safety of the street. Just as we consider,
can you hold, Mr. Collins? Councilmember Miller.
Yes. Sure. Just a quick question while we're on this slide. On the right side, obviously the satellite view still shows the current buildings. And at sections where there are added left turn lanes, it looks like some of those boulevards and sidewalks narrow quite significantly. Now, on the northwest corner of Center Street and 6th Avenue, it looks nice and green, but how might we expect the coordination with Mayo Clinic and their design to manage that space? I mean, how far will the setbacks be? How is that sort of sense maintained even as those public spaces narrow because of the turn lane?
Sure. So some of that precise work will go into preliminary design, and we'll be able to kind of hone that in. And correct me if I'm not getting to your point here. But as we tie into the cycle track on West Center, that is just kind of based off the designs that we've seen for that space. And some of that is being completed by Mayo, some of that is being completed by other city projects. But I'm not sure if that's what it is.
I guess really two questions. One, you mentioned on the left graphic, 8-foot sidewalks. Is that the minimum width of the sidewalk, even in that space that looks quite narrowed on the adjacent slide on the 6th Avenue heading north on the west side of the block? Is that also an 8-foot sidewalk there, or does it narrow?
On the west side of the block, they're likely to be 5-foot sidewalks.
Okay.
Yep, because that's city standard in most residential areas. So
Okay.
The enhanced features and kind of the wider sidewalks would be on the east side.
Okay. And so I guess my then question for perhaps Ms. Steinhauser is, could you speak to the coordination and work with Mayo and this public realm? Obviously, this is the public part of the public realm, and the buildings that are being designed. Can you just speak to the principles of how that public space will be elevated, particularly in the spaces that are narrowed by an additional turning lane?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilmember Miller. So we are at the table with Mayo in that construction and design coordination every single week, if not every single day, to be honest.
Okay.
So the interface really happens is between, let's see, Second to First and then First to Center. Those two blocks adjacent to the Osmond Building and Dock Building. The
Ms.
Mayo.
Steinhauser, can you get closer to your mic?
Sure. What's going on there? Is that better?
Yes.
Lean in. Okay. So the design for those two blocks has been done by Mayo's consultants in consultation with us, knowing that we were advancing this preferred profile for your consideration. Okay. And I think as what Mr. Collins was indicating, we are at about 20% design. So a lot of your more technical questions would come through the next iteration as we move to 60%, 90%, and then ultimately 100% coming back to you for your approval before we issue requests for construction documents bidding.
Okay.
To bid the project.
That's helpful. I just really wanted to clarify because this is the first time we've seen these intersections. They were really kind of, could be a few things in earlier iterations. And so now I guess my question is just seeing a quite expanded road profile with the turn lanes when we've talked about elevated urban design and public space. And I just want to make sure, and you've reassured me that Mayo's coordination is making sure that their New West Logistics entrance is not abutting the sidewalk.
And I would just say, in terms of your question related to the left turn lane, and I would lean to our peers over in Public Works, the options for this intersection we were looking at were controlled intersection, mini roundabout, and I don't recall the third option. But when we collectively landed on a controlled signalized intersection, which is better when you think about, particularly for people with some level of impairment that might impact their ability to navigate a street, traffic signalized intersection is better. That then required us to introduce the idea of a left turn lane into the design. And I'll just defer to Public Works Director Niemeyer to correct me if I misstated that.
Go ahead, Mr. Niemeyer.
Thank you. Sorry, I had a hard time getting the microphone on. That's correct. The turn lanes were advocated for based on trying to limit queuing from the intersections, especially at peak hours. It just keeps things functioning better.
Okay. And are those standard lengths? I mean, it looks like they extend quite a ways. I mean, what is the queuing capacity of the lane, and is there?
I guess I don't know the length of them. I'm looking at the same image you are.
Okay.
I defer to the consultants on a question.
And I'm guessing Ms. Steinhauser's answer about moving forward in design will clarify that. it was surprising to me to see quite a bit of the public space kind of pushed back.
I would, if I could, I would note that to extend Cindy's comments about working with Mayo on the design. There's been a lot of conversation about how to maintain the same feel, whether you're in the right of way or, getting beyond that into Mayo's site and how those things transition and feel throughout the corridor. So it's certainly part of the conversation that's ongoing. We just haven't reached that level of design where we can answer anything specifically, I think.
Councilmember Palmer.
Mr. Miller's making me ask questions here. So on the Center Street, on the right-hand side and left-hand side off of 6th Avenue, are we doing any work there with this project?
On Center Street, we will connect to the adjacent project on Center Street, just to make sure there's continuity there.
What adjacent project? So the right-hand side between the parking ramp and Dan Abram, are we doing work there this year or next year? Because that road's been rebuilt, and I don't see any parking, and there's a lot of parking on that road. So when is that going to be rebuilt?
So I think part of it is under construction with the Mayo work that's happening in and around that space. You're talking about West Center just on the
right-hand side between the Dan Abram and the parking ramp.
Yep.
Okay.
So that is part of that is being redone as part of Mayo Clinic's Bold Forward Unbound work. I think it's underground utility work that's happening in that space. And then there is this work would essentially pick up where they left off, because I think their work boundaries end just prior to 6th Avenue. And so it would make sense for this project to essentially pick up where it left off as opposed to creating a gap.
I think Mr. Niemeyer can help you out there.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to add as well that reconstruction of this intersection was a requirement of the traffic study that came with Mayo's development. So Mayo has an obligation to reconstruct the intersection, and we're working on specifically how that's going to play out, but it is their obligation to make sure that this looks different going into the future.
So again, if you're going down Center Street, you're heading into town between the two buildings we're talking about, is Mayo going to redo that, or are we redoing it, and are we losing those parking spots?
Ms. Steinhauser.
Sure. So, great question. Councilmember Palmer, for a second there, who was asking it. We are designing the intersection as Mr. Niemeyer indicated. It is Mayo's responsibility. What is to pay for that and put it back in. That is going to come to you in a future agreement that we are currently in discussions on to lay out the terms of that. To your question about will we lose parking spots or not, I think I'd have to get back to you unless Steve's able to.
Mr. Sampson Brown.
So Councilmember Palmer, specifically to West Center, once you hit 5th Avenue, there's the North Arrival City Project portion, which does some utility work that wraps the West Center, a block of 5th Avenue heading north, and then a block east on the north side of the new North Arrival ramp. On the south side, adjacent to the church, St. John's, we're going to maintain pull-off parking for approximately 3 buses, which replicates relatively what's there today. Had a conversation with City Engineer Dombrowski last week. We think it's currently signed basically during school time, no parking except for buses. We think we could actually crunch that down to just the standard bus times and allow on-street parking on the south side of West Center between 4th and 5th Avenue. On the north side, that will, right now, by revocable permit, there is allowance for the residents in to have pickup and drop off. We are relocating that around the corner to the 5th Avenue, immediately adjacent to their building on both sides. So we're gonna, that will be shifted. And the reason for that is to maintain a similar cross-section on West Center as you see at this intersection, but servicing to the eastbound into the downtown area.
Okay, and I'm just going to follow up on what Mr. Miller was talking about in front of the old Lourdes. Are we working on an agreement with Mayo to do this? Because the last I understood, we don't have an agreement. That was some future date that they're going to fix that in front of Lourdes. Am I misunderstanding that? From 6th Avenue to 7th Avenue, do we have an agreement that that's what this is going to look like, or are we still up in the air with Mayo?
It looks like Ms. Woodward has an answer to this question, Councilmember.
That is part of the site development plan for the West Logistics Center. So that envisions continuing this along the front between 6th Avenue to 7th Avenue.
So basically, it's a done deal.
It is part of the site development plan that has been conditionally approved.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going back to Mr. Collins and continue.
Sure. So I think an important part as we think about, the work that's happening on 6th Avenue and some other streets in downtown Rochester are the fact that 6th Avenue in particular shows up on the MnDOT high injury vulnerable road user network. These are frequently traveled roads by pedestrians. So what we're proposing here is actually kind of a dual purpose. One of the purposes is obviously to reimagine the street and to kind of develop it in a way that creates a cohesive corridor. But the other side of it is very important, and that is to improve the safety components for pedestrians. So what this chart shows us on screen is that this is a corridor that's been identified by MnDOT as an area where pedestrians, where it is, there are higher injuries in this corridor than in other streets downtown. So this is just a kind of a still image of this isn't a specific image to 6th Avenue, but kind of just more of an example of what kind of a complete street or something like this in this space can look like. With separated bike lanes, double boulevards, and more of an activated space. So that's that. And then project budget. So the funding for this was adopted by City Council on the October 6, 2025 council meeting through the DMC funding initiative for the downtown development. The funding allocated between West Center and Civic Center was $8.75 million. And we just wanted to give council a general idea. Some of these numbers are not finalized yet, but they are our best estimate at this stage. And that is that the design cost could cover upwards of just shy of $1 million, and that would leave $7.7 million for construction, hard costs and construction administration. So that's generally the budget for the 6th Avenue piece. Another piece that I will point out is the area south of West Center to 2nd Street Southwest. That is part of the Bold Forward Unbound initiative. So that's not necessarily included in the budget that's displayed on screen. And that really concludes the presentation. Just kind of reiterating the requested action of adopting the corridor concept from 6th Avenue West to Civic Center, from Civic Center to 2nd Street Southwest, and authorizing the preparation of final design plans and bid documents for the reconstruction of 6th Avenue West from Civic Center Drive to Center Street.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Councilmember Palmer.
Could you go back to slide 44 for me, please?
44. Oh, sure. Didn't see the numbers.
So I'm looking at your map, and it's 6th Avenue. It runs all the way to the bike trail there to the north.
Yep.
And then it runs past 2nd Street. Why would we not want to do this to that whole entire section so that I can come off the bike trail in the north and ride my bike all the way down into and past 2nd Street?
So we're actually going to talk about that in the Reconnecting the Mobility Network piece. And that, the main reason that falls under that project at this particular stage is because of the funding matrix. So what's funded between the Bold Forward Unbound project boundaries and the project boundaries defined by the DMC funding that was allotted in October 6th really just handles from 2nd Street Southwest all the way up to Civic Center. So that section that's a little bit further south, we are going to talk about, but it'll just be in the next presentation.
Okay, and I'm still going back to my bike trail. I'm coming off a Cascade Bike Trail. Now I'm going to come down that road. I'm going to cross 7th Street when I don't have the same elements, and then I'm going to hit Civic Center Drive until I hit the cyclotrack. And so that's confusing to me, and I don't know how you transition from like Civic Center Drive onto the cycle track? I mean, do I cross to how do I do that?
Sure. So the intersection at Civic Center Drive and 6th Avenue is part of the project. So we will be looking just north of that intersection to how to see how we can best create that connectivity. Our project limits do not go further north into the neighborhood to the north, but we do just go beyond that intersection.
So construction-wise, you're talking about finishing at the end of 27. We have the BRT, I think, is going to be July of 27? August of 27?
August 27.
Why wouldn't you want to have most of this done before that date? Because right now, we've got 6th Avenue torn up from 2nd Street to Center Street. I'm assuming they're going to put that back, I think I heard, by June of this year. And then they're going to dig up along Lourdes and head that direction. Why wouldn't you want to do that section now as a rebuilding it and then go down and do Civic Center Drive? As everything's already, for lack of a better way of saying, blown up already.
Councilmember Palmer, I'll take that. I think what's not super clear on any of our maps is just the sequencing of the series of bold on forward unbound projects. So for instance, the UPUI individual breakout, which is the underground utility projects, goes north on 6th Avenue for a couple of blocks past the old Lourdes High School, and then we'll start to head east. So it's a matter of, and myself and many of our team and Public Works meet to talk through this on a weekly basis. It's sequencing the work that we can accomplish under the funded city projects in combination with the schedule needs of the Bold Forward Unbound projects, in combination with what roads are under construction. We still need to get traffic inbound to the clinic on a daily basis. So for instance, when 6th Avenue is not available because it's under construction, we've made a concerted effort to make sure 4th Avenue inbound from Civic Center will be available. And for the southern two blocks connecting to Link, which opens on August 26th, the Osmond Building will be under construction through 2029 and possibly into 2030. And for that whole block adjacent to the Osmond Building, behind the curb, none of that real estate will be available because it will be supporting building construction. Therefore, we won't be able to get a continuous route in until the Osmond Building adjacent work in the public right-of-way. That permits sunset, and then we're planning to come in, or who's ever responsible at that time will come in and finish the bike trail segment. So,
Mr. Niemeyer.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I was just going to add to what Steve was saying and add more context around north of Civic Center Drive. There's not really anything saying that couldn't become a future CIP project, if that becomes a priority connection at some point. And I'll also note that right now we're contemplating some planning efforts on Civic Center Drive as well that may inform that potential future connection further. So we have to start and stop these projects somewhere, and right now it is a function of the activity that's going on downtown and the funding sources that we have signed up for it. It doesn't preclude us from pursuing that work down the road if it does become a priority.
Ms. Steinhauser.
Yes, thank you, Council President Schubring. I would also just comment that next week's study session, which is a supporting transformation update, we intend to go specifically to this topic of what projects are being constructed in what year between now and 2030 to give the council a sense of what is under construction, how we intend to sequence that. And it's driven by all of the things that Mr. Niemeyer and Mr. Sampson Brown said in terms of construction coordination in alignment with our get in there, dig once approach to this work to try and minimize the disruption to the best extent possible.
Councilmember Palmer.
So if I understand you correctly, in 2030, the next to the Osmond Building, that's when that bike trail will be completed and that road will be completed. Otherwise, it's going to be under construction until 2030.
So the road pavement will not. Behind the curb will be either under construction or will be being utilized by the Osmond Building. Now, we haven't got to the site plan needs of the Osmond Building post 2028, so perhaps towards the second half of 28 or 29, they may be able to make that real estate back available for the completion of the bike trail. There is 4 tower cranes that are going to be utilized to construct the Osmond Building, one on the east west, north, and south sides. And the biggest thing is the safety concern as trucks come in with heavy beams or steel or whatever it might be, windows. We're not picking from the public right away where the truck is and swinging it over live pedestrian, bicycle, car access. So some of these are safe zones in terms of just construction real estate needed to make sure in case there's an accident, just whatever falls on the ground. So we're still working through with the Bull Ford Unbound team to confirm when will the west tower crane roll off that site, which will then allow us to plan in several years out. But we have some time to work through that with them.
And Steve, can you just clarify? It's the remaining 2 blocks. The blocks north of Center would be constructed and completed at the completion of the 6th Avenue project by the end of 27. It's those last 2 blocks. So a cycle track does connect to West Center. It's just those remaining 2 blocks. Is that correct?
I think there's a subset. So the northern 2 or 3 blocks are definitely feasible by the end of 27. How West Logistics needs to tie into the utilities out in the public right away, we have not received that information. So there's the underground tunnel and utilities that are going through the corridor, and then there's also how the building comes out and connects to the public utility. So there's 2 factors influencing when we will be able to get in, but the design will be done, and the month that it's available, we'll be ready to go out to bid and award a project to come in behind that. So.
And Council President, I have to correct myself. It's 1 block, not 2 blocks. It's 1 block.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
Sure. I'll make a motion adopting the corridor concept plan on 6th Avenue West from Civic Center Drive to 2nd Street Southwest and authorizing the preparation of final design plans and bid documents for the reconstruction of 6th Avenue West from Civic Center Drive to West Center Street, project number J8908.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Miller and seconded by Councilmember Keen. Councilmember Miller, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the presentation has been helpful, and obviously we've had good discussion through answering questions. I obviously still have some concerns about how this moves to final design, particularly about the balance of the public right-of-way and the elevated experience. But it sounds like we'll have a few more opportunities to review that, and I trust that staff have heard our feedback.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes. Moving on to H3, which is, H3, which is project update, reconnecting the downtown mobility network. And this is Mr. Collins and Mr. Sampson Brown again.
Good evening again, Council President, Council members. Steve Sampson Brown, Director of Construction. We're going to have the same team presenting to support questions and answers and information related to this topic, and I'll turn it over to Project Manager Mike Collins.
Sure. Thank you, Council President, Council members. So what we're requesting here is direction from Council on a preferred option to advance the reestablishment of the north-south connection of the downtown mobility network. So that's our request for this presentation, and now we'll kind of just dive right in. This is the same slide because, as I said, this is one of the first times we're talking about these projects as 2 different projects. So the public engagement period that occurred in September and again in November, though these projects were 1 project. So the statistics you're seeing on screen are engagement events as they pertain to both of those projects. But like I said previously, we have done a number of different things, such as open house, site visits, door knockings, one-on-one meetings with business owners, surveys, and neighborhood meetings. And we've gotten good feedback from the community.
Can you hold there, yes. Mr. Collins? Councilmember Miller.
Just a quick question about engagement. Last Monday, we heard an update on the Historic District Plan, which showed some road profiles and had a transportation element. Can you clarify how those 2 processes interact for engagement?
Sure. We've had a number of calls between the Historic District and this project. We wanted to make sure that we were in general alignment. I mean, we're still, my understanding about the Historic District project is it's not 100% finalized. And what we're bringing to you today is we're seeking direction. So this is not 100% finalized. So there's still further collaboration that needs to happen to make sure that both of these projects are cohesive. But what you'll see here is very much reflective of what you've seen in the previous presentation. Yep.
Continue.
Yep.
Councilmember Palmer.
I'm going to kind of go off of what Mr. Miller was saying. So did you, when you're looking at this, use the 2010 report, of the downtown report?
We've looked at a number of different reports. So that being one, but we've also looked at the 2018 City Loop Plan. We've looked at the 2022 active transportation plan, and we've looked at the 2015. I want to call it comprehensive plan, but I have the exact name in my notes here. So when we looked at this, we did look at a number of plans that were adopted by the city. And so, yeah, that informed some of the decision making. It informed at least the direction in which we were going. But recognizing some of those plans, in fact, I think all of them predated Bold Forward Unbound, and it predated the vacation of 3rd and 4th Avenue, which is really what spurred upon this plan to begin with. So
The reason I bring that up is the historic district one. And the quote that's in their information is that the downtown master plan remains fundamental or foundational, I should say, remains a foundational policy document for the historic district. Yep. So they looked at that as that's the base that they're using, and there's at least, I think you're describing at least 10 different plans that are out there that don't always align with everything. So that's what I want to. So we've looked at that in okay.
Yep. Yep.
Continue.
Okay, thanks. So first I'll just kind of walk you through the ledger here just to clear up some confusion. So the green and yellow dotted areas are the areas of study that we've studied to reconnect the downtown mobility network. The blue line is the Reimagining 6th Avenue project, which I've just given a presentation on. And so we did study 4 corridors. It was initially 3, but we've came back on study session, and we did hear a desire to study second. But the corridors that we did study were Broadway Avenue, 1st Avenue, 2nd Avenue, and 6th Avenue. And I will say, part of 6th Avenue falls under that Reimagining 6th Avenue project, and the southern half falls under the Reconnecting the Mobility Network project. So this
Mr. Collins, can you just go back? Can you let us know why the reconnecting the network? Go back one more slide.
Oh, sure.
I should have mentioned. Yeah. So why does the reconnecting the mobility network end at 4th Street Southwest? Why doesn't it, like for example, on 2nd Avenue Southwest, go into up down to 6th or Soldiers Field? What is the thinking behind ending it at 4th?
Yeah, so I think the primary goal of this project was to reconnect the network, and the way that was thought upon was we have the east-west connection on the south side of downtown, and that's at 4th Street Southwest. The east-west connection on the north side of downtown is at West Center, and by vacating 2nd and 3rd Avenue, we lost that connection between those two east-west routes. So what this ultimately is trying to achieve is giving people an option to get from the south side of downtown to the north side of downtown to another protected bike lane. Now, in terms of where that takes you from there, like in north, if you want to go further north, for example, or if you want to go further south, 3rd and 4th do still exist as painted bike lanes if you choose to go further south, and 3rd and 4th do exist as painted bike lanes, at least at this at least at this junction, if you choose to go further north. So it's about connectivity is really the short answer.
Thank you.
Yep. So really, what this is, what we hope to achieve with this slide is to kind of find some collective agreement around, some of the goals we have for this project. And so I think there's some very positive things that we've gotten out of this project, both from a public engagement perspective, from engaging with council members, both at the study session, people, interest groups, all the rest of it, that we do hope to see, really a vibrant downtown. And so we've kept that at the heart of what we're trying to achieve here. I'm not going to go through and read every word on this slide. It's quite a wordy slide. But I think I just want to ground everybody in the fact that there are a lot of very common themes that this project hopes to achieve. And so as we think about some of these difficult decisions, as we get through the various options that we're going to talk about, I think it's very important to know that that we've brought forward proposals that we thought were representative of the feedback we've gotten and of some of these common themes that that we hope the community at large can kind of agree upon. So that's really kind of the purpose of this. And then my next slide is going to get into some of the data that would help us kind of provide a little bit of clarity of where some of these themes came from. So again, just to explain the ledger here, this graphic, this map of downtown, we have proposed residential developments, identified future residential developments, and recently completed developments. We identified the Reimagining 6th Avenue West corridor on the screen. We also identify a possible reconnecting of the downtown mobility network on there and the existing bike lanes. But ultimately, what we've done here is we've identified the center of downtown, just for purposes of this explanation, as Peace Plaza. And so we want to demonstrate that the volume of developments happening in and around downtown within the walk shed and the bike shed of downtown is expanding immensely. What's not included in here, which should be noted, is the existing housing units that are downtown. These are really just the new developments. There's 22 of them. Of the ones that we know how many units, or at least have an estimate of number of units in those individual buildings that are displayed on screen, there's over 2,000 of the ones we know about. So I think when we look at this map, we are really looking at a downtown that is becoming more reliable on both pedestrian and bicycle facilities for people to get to and from work, to and from the grocery store. And so that, I think, just kind of emphasizes, that downtown is changing from a predominantly car-centric area to an area where people use a variety of modes of transportation to get downtown. And so I thought this was just a very important graphic to show everybody that downtown is developing at a rapid rate, and in order to accommodate that, the goal is to kind of meet the moment and provide safe and effective places for these folks to get to and from work and the grocery store and wherever else they may go. This is the same map that you've seen in the previous presentation, but I did want to just kind of reiterate here, as we are looking at a different maybe segment, but some of the roadways are the same. 6th Avenue, obviously, as from the previous presentation, is on the Vulnerable Road Users Network. 1st Avenue is also on the Vulnerable Road Users Network, as well as Broadway. And those were all three streets studied as part of our project. And one thing this does indicate is that they're not just roadways that are kind of high injury networks for vulnerable road users. They are frequently traveled and priority areas for pedestrians. So as we look at that in the context, these are where a lot of pedestrians congregate. This is where they shop. This is where they go to for their entertainment. And it's been identified by MnDOT as an area that can use safety improvements. And so this project can be a caveat, or can be an avenue to achieve those safety improvements as we look at some of the proposals that we'll get into here in a minute. Another kind of more just context setting slide. I think as we think about reconnecting the downtown mobility network, we keep talking about the vacation of 3rd and 4th, because those were the previous north-south connections. I think we also need to talk about the magnitude of all of the development happening downtown. So this slide represents a large number of the current or future construction projects in the downtown area. And the reason I bring this up is because, as we think about this, there's not always going to be an easy choice. So that makes things a little bit difficult because, you might find a good corridor, but there could be construction delays. And that's my other point, is that as we talk about some of these options, when we talk about delays or delayed implementation, there's a reason for that. And that's because there's significant development happening downtown. And so more of a level setting slide to make everybody aware that there are challenges to reconnecting the network, especially accommodating the number of development sites that are both from private and public that are occurring in the downtown space. Now we're getting into the options. I'm going to start off. I'm going to start off walking everyone through the First Avenue options. So I'm going to start off with First Avenue, what we're calling option A. And option A, just to kind of walk you through what the indications on the map mean. So a solid line means a separated and protected bikeway. A dotted line means a bikeway where you ride with traffic. Or sort of paint on the side of the road. And then this circled blue is the Reimagining 6th Avenue project that we talked about here just in the previous item. So as we look at option A, it achieves the reconnecting the mobility network goal of connecting the east-west route on the south to the east-west route on the north. As we look at this, it is a separated and protected bikeway from 4th Street Southwest to 2nd Street Southwest. And then once you get into the Peace Plaza area, that is a ride with traffic. The traffic volumes are slow enough in that space that it's comfortable for a shared road with bicyclists and vehicles. We are proposing no alterations to Peace Plaza as part of this plan. We're proposing no curb adjustments. This is primarily a restriping project. And so it can be quickly deployed, it's affordable, and this provides a north-south option on the east side of downtown. So that's important because as you've heard from public comment, PBAC would like to see an option on the west side of downtown and on the east side of downtown. So I want to just make sure that everyone understands that this is one of the east side of downtown options we're discussing. This does have parking implications.
Can I stop you, Mr. Collins? So is this considered an interim option during construction? I see kind of further down, you're talking about interim. So with Quick, is this considered a temporary solution?
Sure. So we're calling it an interim solution because we don't know how temporary it's going to be. Some of the construction happening downtown could last upwards of 2030, so that's why we're calling it an interim as opposed to a temporary, but you're correct. It's primarily restriping. This is not a permanent installation, at least not at this particular stage.
And each of the next series of options that you're going to give us are interim options or potential interim options.
On First Avenue, they would all be considered interim options. When we get to 2nd Avenue and 6th Avenue, those will be a little bit different. And we'll explain those.
Okay.
Yep. So I left off, there will be parking implications to this option. And delayed, we do put here delayed timeline due to adjacent projects. There are a number of construction projects.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Just for a little more clarity, has parking implications. How many parking spots would we net lose on this option?
Sure. I've got that written down here. So existing in that corridor, we have 74 on-street parking stalls. With option A, this would reduce to 41, which is a reduction of 33. I will say when I get down into the when I kind of get down into the mock-up of this area, we did manage to get 11 stalls back from what we brought to you in November. And I'll explain that as we get a little bit further along.
Still at 41 though, with the additional 11? Are you saying you bump it up to 52?
If 41 stalls would remain, but the reduction is 33 stalls.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Can you just add that information as you go through each option?
Sure.
The parking implications.
Yep, I'm happy to. First Avenue option B, this is somewhat similar, but I'll kind of walk through the differences. The layout on the map is really the same. The solid green lines represent, separated and protected on the north and south side of downtown. And the dotted line represents riding with traffic, and the solid line represents a separated and protected bike lane. So this is a separated and protected bike lane. This option would start off on 2nd Avenue Southwest, 2nd Avenue Southwest with a jog over underneath the 3rd Street ramp, and then reconnect to 1st Avenue, and then take 1st Avenue North. So the only area that would require restriping is that area between 3rd Street Southwest and 2nd Street Southwest. The area beneath the 3rd Street ramp would require some minor curb work, which is why that 3rd bullet point does indicate minor curb adjustments, but it is primarily restriping beyond that. Similar to the previous one, no alterations through Peace Plaza. Provides a north-south option on the east side of downtown, has parking implications, and per the request, the current day, same as before, 74 on-street parking stalls on 1st Avenue. This would have 58 stalls, which would be a reduction of 16. So just to compare, the option A had a reduction of 33, option B had a reduction of 16. And then cyclists could connect from 2nd Avenue to 1st Avenue and to 3rd Street Southwest.
Councilmember Palmer.
I'm troubled with your idea that West Center to 2nd Street, the traffic is slow, but it all of a sudden speeds up for that block. Have you done a traffic study? How do we know that the traffic speeds up in that area?
Are you talking about the area through Peace Plaza?
I'm talking about the area, what you're talking that's speedy is from 2nd Street to 3rd Street on this.
2nd Street, so you mean 2nd Avenue?
2nd Street Southwest.
Okay.
We're on 1st Avenue.
Yep.
I'm heading south.
Yep.
You're telling me that that's a speedy area, but it's not speedy to the north of that.
I'm sorry, I'm not entirely following.
Yeah, Councilmember, can you clarify what you're asking? Are you speaking of north of Center Street?
Sorry to jump in.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I'm
can you identify yourself, please?
Yeah. Thank you, council members and Mayor. Noah Hallbach with Tool Design.
Okay,
We're
thank
the
you.
Consultant supporting the city on this project. And I think you're referring to why is there the shared lane riding from Center Street to 2nd Street, and then we go to the separated bikeway south of there. And that there's two reasons there. One, just because of the redevelopment for Peace Plaza, we don't want to touch that. You know, that there's a lot of investment put into that section of the corridor. And the way that street was redesigned, it was narrowed. There's less vehicles traveling through there at slower speeds. So we think through that segment, the shared lane riding is appropriate for all ages and abilities. As you travel south of there, there's just higher vehicle volumes. There's more turnover with the parking in the area. And so that's where we think it's beneficial to have the separation of the bicyclist from the motorist on the roadway. And
But he was saying it was speed. And it being in that area quite a bit, heading from 2nd Street Southwest south, it's not a speedy spot. I'm not following your speed.
Yeah, I think the two metrics, speed and volume, contribute to the comfort level for bicyclists. And I'd agree with you, it doesn't seem like a higher speed segment, but just with the volume of turnover of vehicles, we think the separation is going to be beneficial through that area. We do have more space through that area too with the conversion that we're proposing. kind of the curb to curb width, there's more room to work with through that area.
And now you're not showing anything north of Center Street on First Avenue? Are we leaving that the same?
With this option, that would be the same, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so that has diagonal parking on both sides once the construction's done. So I'm gonna come down and I don't get the advantage for one block.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sampson Brown.
Councilmember Palmer, so Mike was correct when he originally described the project limits. However, as we started talking to people, and we all understand the value of a connected network, a natural part of the conversation was people from Lower Town neighborhood saying, I ride my bike, how am I gonna get down there? So working in partnership with the engineering department, we didn't waste the opportunity to consider how might this network be able to grow over time. Director Niemeyer talked about we have a constrained budget on this particular segment, but there's always opportunities to submit future capital project requests. So with all that in mind, we did look at First Avenue up to Civic Center. We feel that with paint and delineators and an interim build using the existing budget that we have. It's actually that one. Yes, so we have option C. So we did look at, there is an ability to make that connection if there's a desire to go all the way to West Center. It would be more with paint and delineators, but we could create the separation. It's a solid line. That means you're not riding with traffic. However, we don't have the budget to move curbs and do the nicer things that perhaps like we're going to see at the end of the summer on East Center Street when that project comes to fruition.
We have Councilmember Miller and then Councilmember Doring.
And just for clarification on this, is that section not possible with option B's configuration? We only see it on the First Avenue continuous. Can you just clarify, is there an option D with the north addendum?
So I think two things. There is a city Mayo agreement that has a set of $480,000 to replace the bike lanes. I'd have to refer to help from Deputy City Administrator Steinhauser or Niemeyer. I'm not sure the Mayo City agreement allows us to go beyond those limits with that funding or not. I'm not aware that it does.
So, thank you. The 480,000 was part of the agreement as a result of the street vacation is not prescriptive. It is for us to use for reestablishing the network. So I think your question is
there a secret
could
option B?
B have shown north of West Center? Yes. The short answer is yes.
Okay.
Whether it's done under that 480,000 we have or a future CIP, we could have just as easily added that segment to option B. Yes.
And thank you. And as a follow-up, could someone clarify the timeline for those blocks north of West Center? Because particularly now there's still active construction at the Jacobson Building. Central Park is being used as a transit terminal. So when would those become available?
So I will defer to other teammates, but my understanding is it opens back up in September. I don't recall when the buses are. You need to go to the mic. To the mic, please. To the mic, please.
So I'd also ask for Director Niemeyer, there's the sanitary sewer line that has to run up to Goose Egg Park, and I'm not certain over that route. So I think there's two things. Am I correct in that?
It does not run on that route. No,
Okay, not on First
that's
Avenue?
not a conflict with that. part.
Okay.
No.
So, yeah, so the Once Link BRT, I'll answer the question for Mike, or finish his thought. Once Link BRT is done with construction of the platforms at Second Avenue and at Sixth Avenue. Second Street is fully open and available, unimpeded. Our goal, which will be in the second half of 2026, at that point, the downtown transfer is available to move back and be uninterrupted by relocating to its original position on Second Street near First Avenue. So later in 26.
Councilmember Doring.
I'm wondering if I can be provided the data, or we could be provided the data that the Peace Plaza block on First Avenue is safe. as a user of that block and cycling on that block during peak operating hours, I would argue that it is completely unsafe for a cyclist. So I'm wondering what metrics were used to determine that that was a safe commuting block with shared traffic.
I'll ask Noah to come up and speak to that a little bit. City engineer Dylan Dombrowski has shared that the original design, which I was before my time here, envisioned a slow street. I think the characteristics we see are the narrow lane widths. He did reference speeds had been looked at previously. I don't have that data with me tonight to show that, speeds are traveling below 25 miles an hour. But I'll let my colleague from Tool Design kind of speak to what makes a safe street.
Hey, yeah, so we look at the average daily volume on the street, and so maybe that's why you're seeing some discrepancy between peak hours versus off-peak hours. And so we're looking at total volume throughout the day as a measurement of generally how stressful it is for a cyclist to use the street.
So what I hear you saying then is that during those on-peak hours, when we're encouraging people to use multimodal transportation to get to downtown, those on-peak hours are the unsafest hours to ride your bike on that shared lane street.
Based on, yeah.
Based on volume
Yeah.
and speed.
You could see a reduction in speed. With an increase in volume, you could see a reduction in speed, and it could help balance out. But yeah.
Okay. All right. That's
looking at those two metrics together is
okay.
important.
Council President Schubring, if
Go ahead, Ms. Steinhauser.
I just want to correct a statement. And Noah, Steve, you can verify this, but I believe the reason the miles per hour on that segment is actually under 20 miles per hour, not 25. It's under 20 miles per hour. So operating at a slower speed. That's why it's the criteria why it's considered acceptable to be a shared path for bikes and motors.
And
Not
how have we?
25.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
sorry.
How have we studied volume on that block? Because I understand speed with cyclists is an issue, but also volume of traffic during those peak hours.
I've made note of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who is going to take the rest of this presentation? What I'm going to do is I'm going to let you finish your presentation. Council members, you can ask questions if you like. We are at the 2-hour mark. After the presentation, I would propose that we take a break and then return back for further questions and motions. Does that work for folks? Looks like it. Yes, go ahead,
I'm
Mr.
comfortable with that.
Collins.
Thanks. So I can I've already talked to this option as it pertains to south of center. It's very similar to what option A was. The option C really just adds that northern piece that can come at a later time. And so, yeah, I'll just kind of move on to the next slide here. I think.
Mike, would you please give the parking deduct for under this?
Oh, sure. Yes. So parking C, existing, and this is a little different. So I appreciate the bringing that up, Cindy. This is a little different because we've included the parking north. So the existing number of parking stalls on the northern or throughout the entire corridor from north all the way to 4th Street Southwest is 139. And then the proposed after this is implemented is 90, and that would be a reduction of 49 stalls.
Councilmember Miller, go ahead.
Could you just clarify when the last time that many stalls was available on the stretch?
Before the Anderson building, but I don't have a date, but yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah, yep.
So just to clarify, option C is option A adding north of Center Street, correct? So all of those additional parking spaces are north of Center up to Civic Center Drive.
That's right.
Got it.
Yep. Am I going the wrong way? I am. Okay, so as we talk about that segment of First Street between 4th Street Southwest and 2nd Street, sorry, 1st Avenue between 4th Street Southwest and 2nd Street Southwest. This is the proposal we've come up with, and it is a little different than what we brought to you in November. I'm actually going to start off on the right side of the screen, which is the one that starts at 4th Street Southwest, and we'll move our way north. This area, we've tried to maintain parallel parking based on feedback on the west side of the street where it applies. There are areas you'll see the parallel parking in that space. A two-way cycle track on the on the west side of the road. And then as you get to 3rd, we'll transition over to the other image. And that will also have a two-way cycle track. That is a 10-foot wide cycle track. And that will have parallel parking on the west side of the street with angled parking on the east side of the street. And that is the proposal for, like, even if you chose option B, for example, which has that jog under the bridge, the northern part that it would connect to would be that image on your left hand of your screen there.
Can I have you go back to that? Just so where you're adding the parallel parking, looks like 5-6 spots. Is there angled parking there now? Is that where I'm talking about the right-hand photo from 3rd Street Southwest to 4th Street Southwest?
3rd Street Southwest to 4th Street Southwest. I believe there is angled parking in that space.
And there's no parking on the west side at all now?
Not that I recall.
Okay.
No, I don't believe so.
So I guess my question is, why do you have to take those angled parking out if the bike lane is proposed in an area where there is no parking now?
I think it's space. So the bike lane in that area, it's 12 feet wide, and that might not be enough room to, or at least it wasn't when we looked at this, when Tool Design has come up with this, that there wasn't enough room to do angled parking in that space. That's why those are parallel spots, kind of just shy of 3rd Street Southwest there. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
You can keep going.
Okay, sure. So this, again, I've already said this, but I did want to reiterate, through Peace Plaza, we are not proposing any changes. So that's really all this slide encompasses here, is that it will look exactly like it is today. 2nd Avenue option, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Noah Hallbeck from Tool Design.
Give Mike a little break here. But yeah, so we were asked during the last council work session to consider 2nd Avenue as an alternative option. And that requires, there's a few segments to make of the street to make that work. Traveling up from 4th Street Southwest at the southern point where we have the existing two-way bikeway, we're proposing, let's see if this helps me at all. We're proposing shared lane riding through Discovery Walk area, the newly constructed Discovery Walk. So that's a similar approach as we would take through Peace Plaza. The feedback we've heard is that that's a very comfortable current segment for bicyclists to use. Again, there's lower volumes, lower speeds through that section. So there'd be shared lane riding through there. You would travel north up to 2nd Street Southwest. That's where you run into the existing Annenberg Plaza. And that's where there would require some coordination between the city and Mayo. This is an existing Mayo property with a pedestrian easement through it. One option could be to look at getting an easement to allow cyclists to use the same space. And so the high-level concept that our team has taken through here just looked at segmenting this out into different areas through that plaza area. So you would still have a primary pedestrian route on the face of the buildings on the east side, allowing access to those buildings. The bikeway would run through the middle. That would be a totally separated facility. There'd be a detectable edge on either side to really discourage pedestrian crossing of that facility in the middle of the block. The crossing would be encouraged to happen kind of where you see that blue teal area, and really where we see that as a priority east-west pedestrian connection between the Mayo Building and Plummer Building. And then the green space that you see, that's really where there could be the more raised plaza elements, the seating, the planters, the more areas you would expect in a public realm area. And then the pink area to the left, that would be required for emergency vehicle safety access. So that's an area where you wouldn't be allowed to have the vertical elements because vehicles would need to travel through there. That's concept to...
Councilmember Miller.
I guess a question for Mr. Spindler, Craig. Could you clarify, is there a separate thing in Minnesota state law that is a bicycle easement versus a pedestrian easement?
Thank you, Council Member. Mayor Norton, there's not a separate concept, and this matter has been discussed in a few different spaces. The current arrangement is for pedestrian only, does not contemplate bicycle, so that would need to be a significant point of conversation.
Can I clarify a little bit more on Councilmember Miller's point? So I guess the question is how I heard it was in state statute, is a pedestrian easement, is there a separate easement for bicyclists, or is a pedestrian easement also somebody who is on a bicycle?
I'll try to answer your question, even though I'm somewhat surprised by the question. So I'm not sure which statutory provision you're referencing. I would certainly take a closer look at it. The conversation to date has been the language used in the Annenberg Plaza provision specifically, not referencing state statute.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Palmer.
So we have an ordinance that you can't ride your bike on a sidewalk. Is that what we do downtown? Is that an ordinance?
That is true.
So wouldn't this be a sidewalk?
No, the sidewalk's to the right.
It would not if we're otherwise defining it differently.
Okay. Continue.
Yeah, I believe this would be private property. Again, priority pedestrian east-west crossing, it would be prioritized towards the north at the Peace Plaza kind of terminus there. And then the connection point would be to the new valet drop-off, the roundabout turnaround. From there north, the cyclists would resume shared lane riding in that newly constructed street segment, connecting at Center Street West to a future east-west bikeway, off-street east-west bikeway. That future bikeway would not be part of this project. This connection, there are existing bike lanes on Center Street that we would connect to. We talked about the interims option for First Avenue. This option would be kind of more of a midterm option that would require further coordination with Mayo through the plaza space. We see this as a slightly longer term option. And so looking at connecting to those longer term cycle tracks on Center Street West that would take you over to the bike lanes on 3rd and 4th Street if you want to continue north. 3rd and 4th Ave.
Councilmember Miller.
So I guess, let me ask this a way of, you've mentioned interim and midterm options. If there were an interim option on the First Avenue, whatever configuration, is it possible to shift that then to the midterm option on Second Avenue? Could this be a stage 2 out of an interim solution on First Avenue?
We haven't talked about that internally, but yeah, in my opinion, yeah, you could. There are, with the kind of lower effort that First Avenue requires, you could shift that to a parallel corridor in the future.
So if we gave direction to work on better coordination with Mayo to figure this out, that doesn't preclude the use of First Avenue as an interim condition, correct?
believe that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
I can take that too. Yeah, that's correct. I just want to kind of point out that the Peace Plaza is currently being turned into a one-way southbound road. And so we would have to wait until the shuttles have gone away. So there's a few things that would need to be navigated, but I don't see a reason why not.
Council President Schubring?
Go ahead, Ms. Steinhauser.
Yeah, thank you. I want to just bring up a couple of things that were not shared in this option that was studied by Tool, which we would not advance as a recommendation, and a lot of it has to do with all the inherent conflicts that exist. You're seeing the proposed route. It conflicts with fire lane, building code egress out of buildings. When you get to the north section where it shows valet drop-off, both the Kaler Hotel and Mayo East entrances will have valet drop-off. The numbers that we're hearing are upwards of 300 pedestrians an hour. So there is a lot of intense pedestrian activity, which has been Mayo's concern all along in terms of the conflict between people. And as we think about Mayo's, and I'm just kind of repeating their input to us about this is a desired route or not as a desired route, is the complex care will continue to grow. And with complex care, it is not necessarily an able-bodied person or a person with, maybe a minor assisted device. It is people with very complex care coming out of these entrances. And the inherent conflict of cyclists is what brings a great reticence to have this be an option. And quite honestly, for us, when we think about the value of a bike lane, it is about getting people through spaces, and through those spaces where there is business that presents an opportunity for more people to have exposure, businesses to have exposure to people. This is a lower priority because it is an institution and it's the Kaler Hotel as compared to the for example, First Avenue or Broadway, which were the other two that we're leaning towards.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Steinhauser. We do want to get through this presentation, but just to the point, it is in our list of options. Go ahead.
And I'll just note quickly that one trade-off with this option too is that it does terminate at Center Street, whereas the 6th Avenue, First Avenue, Broadway options all continue north and south, further north and center. So that brings us back to our third set of options, and that's looking at the continuation of 6th Avenue further south than 2nd Street Southwest, where we had shown in the Reimagining 6 project. So our team really looked at it all the way from Civic Center Drive all the way to 4th Street Southwest as a continuous corridor. In terms of the reimagining portion, that would complete and finish at 2nd Street Southwest, but we do see there being a lot of value in continuing that bikeway further south, just making that network connection down to the existing bikeways on 2nd Street Southwest or 4th Street Southwest, excuse me. And so that option is what we're showing here in a concept. So that would be a continuation of that two-way bikeway on the east side of the street. What's different for this, as shown in this segment, is that we're proposing a reconstruction of just the east side of the street. And so this is, again, it's not necessarily a quick build interim because based on the constraints of the curb-to-curb width, we're not able to do it with just kind of paint and flex posts. To get the sufficient width for the bikeway, we need to reconstruct and move out that eastern curb a little bit to get the extra width necessary. So that would be a two-way bikeway, 10-foot on the east side, continuing down to 4th Street Southwest. Preservation of all the parking on the west side. Finally, I'll touch on the Broadway Avenue option. And so this is something that we again feel has merit in kind of the long term in looking at connections north and south along Broadway. There's an existing bikeway north of Civic Center that this would be able to tie into. However, our team felt that there is not a short-term or kind of a near-term option to reconnecting the mobility network along Broadway. And so we think further study would be needed to really assess the kind of merit in incorporating bikeway as part of an overall street design for Broadway. We know there's a lot of competing interests on Broadway for multiple different users and turning that into a complete street. That's it for me.
All right. Are we, Councilmember Palmer?
On Broadway, you're talking about, it was built in 1989, it had a 40-year lifespan, so we're at 36 years. Wouldn't this be the time to design Broadway now and in 4 years get it up and running?
So I can start, and Cindy, you can chime in.
Actually,
Yep.
can we take up Councilmember Palmer's question at the beginning of the discussion, since this is your last slide and we all can see what the next is. So we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks for telling me, Sean.
So when we last left this topic, Councilmember Palmer was ready to dive into questions, but I'm going to have Mr. Sampson Brown just very quickly go through the options, very, very quickly, and then we'll go into questions.
So I'll just go back to. Oh, there you go. Okay, so actually I'm gonna ask colleague Mitzi from Tool Design to do the quick recap.
Thank you. Thanks for your time tonight. There's a lot here to consider. This slide, I think, does a good job of summarizing the main corridors we've been looking at. And I know you've looked at a bit of detail, but here you can kind of step back and take a look at the options. It's Broadway, First Avenue, Second Avenue, and then there is that segment of Sixth Avenue connecting from Second Street to Fourth Street. We're here to help facilitate the conversation and answer any questions that you might have. Broadway really does present a little bit of a challenge for a shorter term or interim connection to reconnect the network because it is not currently in a condition that would allow for a lower cost or quicker implementation. That one would require a reconstruction. First Avenue does present an opportunity for something to be reconnected in a shorter term with a lower cost that would be closer to the budget that's been allocated. Second Avenue, the biggest challenge there probably is working with a private property and then also having to share the street right in front of the Kaler Hotel between the Gonda building and the Kaler. Bikes would have to be in the travel lanes. There isn't enough space there to separate bicycles in that space. So that's very high level, but we'll try to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you. And so my question was on the Broadway, in that in 3 years it should be rebuilt. Why wouldn't we want to get that design going right now and include Broadway since that's would connect it with a lot of our cycle tracks?
Sure. I think Councilmember Palmer, the biggest challenge is funding availability. That's probably $1 million plus design. That budget, that line item is not in the budget. Also, the city is in the process of submitting a build grant application, which would cover Civic Center and the missing section of Broadway, starting at 4th Street Southwest. That's what we call our South Broadway build grant that we've received. We are in the process as staff negotiating through MnDOT and Federal Highways on the final grant agreement. We think we're in a matter of weeks to a month to be able to bring that forward to you for approval. That would start the design, and really that goes from 9th Street Southwest and goes north to 4th Street. And that, I think, really sets the table in combination with the work that community development is doing on the historic district plan to really get, as we move north on Broadway, how might this revitalize downtown. But that's just a major initiative, cost, and we just didn't see that feasible under the budget we were provided.
Okay.
Questions? Mayor Norton.
Yeah, I was going to ask a similar question to Councilmember Palmer, and it is bringing up the question that, two questions I have. One, if we count it out now, does this mean that it will not be dealt with as, we hear complete streets, but is it going to have protected bike lanes at some point? And secondly, we have access to DMC monies, and this board, this city council can choose to spend DMC monies in a particular way, and Broadway seems to me to be a priority for the community. So I guess I'm wanting to not just like quickly toss that away, because I think that in the long run, Broadway should be bike friendly, and we should be talking about it now. So I'll stop talking.
Maybe, Council President Schubring, maybe if I could just build off of the Broadway,
Absolutely.
the Broadway
Go
strategy.
ahead.
So we have the build grant for South Broadway. We have applied for a build grant from 4th up to Center, as well as Civic Center Drive. We have also identified it as a request to our federal legislators for potential earmark. So if we were just plot this out. Say we're successful in getting the build grant. We will know by the middle of summer on the build grant. It would likely take us through the end of the year to and into 27 to get an agreement. Then we would have to go out for bid for design services. So now we're through 27, maybe into the beginning of 28. We would then recommend applying for that same build program for construction. And again, there would be a local match that would be required for the construction piece. So it's definitely, I would say not selecting it tonight does not mean that it drops off. It's very much on our radar as a future capital project that we are actively pursuing state and federal dollars for. It's just, it is not, as both Mitzi and Steve indicated, not something that could be implemented in the next year or two, which I think is what we heard as part of this process that we were trying to seek to do.
Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you. So I'm going to go back to 6th Avenue and running it from Cascade down to Soldiers Field as a cycle track. So when would it be in the CIP to do that, or how much do you think that would cost estimate-wise?
I wouldn't be able to give you a sense of a cost estimate, but in terms of putting it into the city budget, unless you directed us to do it as part of the supplemental budget, it would come, the soonest it would come would be in the 28, 29 biannual budget process, which starts in a year.
Okay. So one other question, and this is kind of a safety one. I've looked at a lot of the bike safety and read a lot of different things on this in the last 6 months. If we dropped in the city core, if we dropped our speed limit to 20 miles an hour and we had no rights on and red turns, would that be safer for all the bikes and all the roads?
I would certainly say, as a biker, no rights on reds would be a safety improvement as a standard. I can't speak to the traffic metrics in terms of traffic signal productivity at an intersection, but many bikers sometimes get hit, vehicles looking to the left, turn right, biker or pedestrian on the right side. That's a known conflict that's to occur to happen. In terms of speed limit reduction, without parallel changing of the street character, typically, and I would say 4th Street Southeast is a good example. You know, we have 4 open lanes, relatively low congestion, not much on-street parking, and people tend to drive at their own pace or comfortable, which is north of 30 miles an hour. So an arbitrary change to the speed limit without parallel changes to traffic calming measures to be implemented probably isn't going to result in the result that we want to see.
And we're talking the downtown core, not 4th Street Southeast. And kind of going to what the mayor was getting at with Broadway, the big advantage to me is the pedestrian part, because right now, if you stand on the corner of 2nd Street and in Broadway, it's a cavern, and it does not help businesses on the other side either way. So, I think that we need to pursue this a little bit more, and I believe that she was saying DMC funding. I'm not particularly sure where the money comes from that I really care. I just want to see that Broadway get taken care of sooner than later. So those are kind of my ideas right now.
Councilmember Miller.
So it sounds like Councilmember Palmer would like to go to the tax levy to expedite Broadway. I'm joking.
Well, we can use DMC money.
I'm joking. I have a question for the team about a different element of this that came up in open comment, which was about data collection. Do we currently have budget or equipment to do the required data collection independent of what design we try to advance?
Councilmember Miller, you're speaking to parking data collection, vehicles, pedestrians?
Answer that, all those components, yeah.
Sure. So we have some resources. Let's speak to vehicles first. So the city currently has access to 2 softwares. One's called Urban SDK, one is called Streetlights. Urban SDK, again, works off autonomous vehicle data that gets put out that people may not realize if they have a newer car, or cell phone data. That is responsive in about a 72-hour update. So that's why we prefer that. We find Streetlight as a software provides data about 30 days late coming in. The challenge with using that data set is we're having major changes to the downtown street patterns. in a more frequent cycle. So to really collect a data set on vehicles is hard to apply to a long-term solution based on what streets are closed, and there's major street closures currently.
And for data collection on bikes, pedestrians, Lime, I would suspect has a more robust data set on.
We do have some data set online. So Ride Report's the software they provide, and we're wrapping up the 2025 annual report, and we'll be bringing that to you shortly as a council item. So we do have heat maps generally from 6th Avenue to about 1st Avenue, east to west, within 2nd Street, a few blocks. That's the primary, that's where the most rides occur for e-scooters under Lime.
And does that just give us a sense of where they're most frequent or how many there are?
We can get both out of that. Okay. So referring to me, pedestrians, we don't really have a data set. We'd have to do that by counting, which is something we can do. We're bringing on some active transportation interns this summer on our team, so that's a great work for them. Bikes, same thing. The city does have some counting devices. We're in the process of procuring more. We'll have a better capability to collect data sets in the coming months. We just don't have anything downtown. And I'm missing a mode. Bikes, data, parking. So we don't have, same thing, meter parking. We don't have great reports. When you pay with your credit card, we really can't track that transaction at a meter, or pay with, if you use the Park mobile app, yes, we can track that. And we have some really good, the Amount of One system that was recently installed in the parking ramps provides some robust data sets that we're just starting to work with our parking team to get access to that information.
Okay. So how might we expect to receive a more robust unified data set on some of these travel modes? And the reason I ask is because Councilmember Palmer has brought up quite a few times the census data on commutes and mode splits by commutes, and I agree that's important. It feels incomplete to some of these discussions, and I'm curious how we get to a place where we have a real seasonal discussion about how many people are walking, how many people are biking, how many people are driving, how many people are taking transit, so that we have a real sense of the local context and not statistically modified commuter data, which is a part of people's travel patterns on a given day.
Sure. In terms of monitoring over time, I'm probably not the best person to answer that. I'm a more per project. Active Transportation Coordinator Matt Lynch is in the audience. Perhaps he'd be willing to come up and speak to that, the strategic plan, or somebody else.
I'm going to take a shot at addressing this because I think what it comes down to is you have a counting program where you're regularly identifying where you're going to count, what you're going to count, and how you're going to report on it. And now that you have a active transportation coordinator, or mode shift coordinator, I think you're well positioned to develop that program and come back with a conversation on that topic specifically.
Okay.
And I'm going to take this chance to bring you back to the map.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the burning questions here is, does the council want to be in a position to reconnect the network for bicyclists within the next maybe 18 months?
I'm going to go to Councilmember Fredericks. He's next on our list.
Thank you, President. Does extending the 6th Avenue Northwest project just 2 blocks accomplish the goal of the north and south connectivity, and then in return buy us some time to come up with a good plan for the Broadway project in however many years? Then you have basically 2 sides that are connected on the north and south, and to me, you'd have a good product, not running through all the congestion on First, so on and so forth. Does that extension, 2-block extension, accomplish the goal?
I think it depends on who you ask, because not everyone agrees that that connection from 2nd Street to 4th Street Southwest meets the goal of an all ages and abilities network.
Do we have a policy for all ages and abilities?
There's no single straightforward design that works because it's very context sensitive. Grades, speeds, volumes, widths all have a contribution to that decision. It's a nuanced decision.
So we don't have a policy.
So, Council President Schubring.
Go ahead, Ms. Steinhauser.
I would say in short answer is yes. And then you layer in all of the things that Mitzi indicated.
Yes, we do have a policy.
Does it, no, to your question of does it solve for it? The answer is yes. But
Thank
then
you.
you layer in the other things. We do also have, by virtue of adoption of the active transportation plan, embedded in that plan is a definition of all ages and abilities. Bicycle trails and on-street lanes designed to be comfortable to a range of bicyclists, including children, seniors, women, people with disabilities, people moving goods or cargo, people of color, and low-income riders. That is your definition of all ages and abilities that's adopted in the active transportation plan.
Okay, Mr. Niemeyer wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to add briefly that we have a complete streets policy. The active transportation plan expands on that and talks about all ages and abilities as a concept within that plan and lays out the corridors where that could or should be achieved.
Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, couple of things. First, I was really interested in this discussion on counting your data because I like the way you put it, that we're well positioned to try to do that. When we talk about interim solutions or things like that, has anyone considered that as part of an interim, we would start collecting data like that?
Yes, I think we absolutely would, Councilmember Keen. Because we're not moving curbs and making permanent changes, that gives us an ability to adjust the design. I'd even say that's a national best practice. Cities put things out, see what works. A lot of it works, pieces don't. That gets refined, and then we spend money on concrete and things like that are much more expensive.
Okay. I think underneath this, we've been having a combination of a public safety discussion, and a lot of, but really it's a lot about how do we use this precious thing of our right of way and how best to use it, and is there trade-offs between safety for one group of users compared to potential business impacts to others, and that's sort of how I've been watching this discussion going. And with that, I'm going to make a motion to adopt option B from the presentation as the preferred option to advance for reestablishing the north-south connection in the downtown mobility network.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Keen. Is there a second? I will second that. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, I'll just try to make a couple points here. One is I do accept the city's defined project of reconnecting between the east and west routes of 4th Street and Center Street. Again, you almost have to define these things somehow to get started. I actually cringed a little bit because I thought, no, we got to get to 2nd Street because we didn't vacate 3rd and 4th Avenue past 2nd Street Southwest. But I think there's an unspoken thing here that we don't want bikes on 2nd Street. And that drives us to 4th Street. So I accept that as a starting point for this. On the discussion of 1st Avenue Northwest running north of Center Street, again, good discussion. I hope someday we do that, but just scoping it down to what we're dealing with today on reconnecting, I think I'll leave that for another day. But I am, this is a good time now after that's been, not been used, under construction for the last couple of years. How do we reestablish it when the bus things go away? It's not a matter of pulling an existing asset out. It's like, how should we be using this? And I do consider it close to that downtown core. We are using words like interim, but these are 4 and 5 and 6 years things. So I don't want to call them temporary, and I do appreciate that a lot of the solutions we're talking about are. I hate using this. It almost sounds like oversimplified paint, but we're redefining what we're using our right of way for. This trade-off, when we talked about how many parking spots there are and how many would they be after this, that's important here. This is something that we've established as an important asset for some of these businesses, but we've also haven't got the data on that either. We heard emphatically last week that you can't cheat this system, and then Friday we got an update that said, yeah, you can, and they're doing it all the time. And I don't know if that's one of these 74 spaces or 37 of these spaces. I don't know. I only get anecdotal data from people who say it's certainly happening. So that idea of having data to make decisions would sure be helpful. One of the valuable arguments against option B that residents have made to me is it's complicated and it's not direct. and can wayfinding solve this? And I don't think so. And will the bike people in the bike community asset this? But the novice user, how does he know where we've tried to establish these protections from them, and will they get to use it? And my take is a lot when you're using this downtown stuff, you're not talking to the average novice. You're talking about people who will use these things and will find them. And to that end, I've been a little bit frustrated that I've got people telling me that they use First Avenue all the way through Goose Egg Park because it's much better than being on that cycle track on Center Street. And it's sort of like, what are we doing here? And I think underneath that we're trying to make our streets safer for all modes of transportation, but we also have people who are going to make their own decisions on what's safest for them. And with that, I was kind of looking at those trade-offs, and I think option B seems to address what this council asked for almost a year ago to say, how do we reconnect?
Thank you, Councilmember. As a seconder, I will take on to that. This option, one, I really look at this as an interim option. And temporary option. That temporary, maybe 3-4 years. From my perspective, this it has the least amount of impact on the current commercial district. We're losing 16 parking spots. I think this one has the best potential for connecting to the historic district, which is to the east of there. We heard last week that 3rd Street Southwest could be a connection to the river from First Avenue Southwest, and so that element of connecting the east of First Avenue to the primary clinic area, I think is important. I want to emphasize, though, that I look at this as a interim temporary solution. My preferred option is 2nd Avenue Southwest. It is low traffic. It is almost designed as a cycle track. And I wasn't here when it was designed, but I wonder why it wasn't designed as a cycle track. I also look at Annenberg Plaza, and I know there are issues to Annenberg Plaza, and there may be some right-of-way issues there, but we're in an interesting position right now where Annenberg Plaza and Second North of 2nd is currently being constructed for a temporary, it may be 3 years, it may be 4 years, a vehicular traffic for the clinic in that area. So now is really the optimum time to have that discussion with our major employer that is there a way that we can bring pedestrians and cyclists together in this space to go forward. I do hear, Ms. Steinhauser, that there may be some hesitation to push that. I think this council is really ready to have that discussion and want to have some transparency with that discussion with our major employer, but I think we're in a good spot to let them know what we're interested in seeing for a permanent solution down the road. But back to the motion, I think this option B really helps us reduce the impact, and it also, and from my standpoint, and I mentioned this last week, and I may be becoming the angled parking guy, but I really do not like to lose that angled parking. This has I respect that you put some of that back. I do believe, and Councilmember Palmer cited the 2010 report that talks about angled parking and its impact as a barrier, as traffic calming. I got your point earlier, Councilmember Palmer, that it isn't a speedway because of angled parking south of 2nd on First. So with that, I seconded this motion. Councilmember Palmer is next.
Ms. Casel, could you put that map up for me, please? And as she's doing that, Public Works does have the information on surveys on every corner downtown, the number of bikes and the number of pedestrians. And I have that in my file at home, but I know Public Works has it and they can make that available to us. That's been done. And that's a local one that's been done. The map that I'm asking to be put up here is from 2010, and this is the downtown report. And it called First Avenue the Main Street for us downtown. And so they did not envision this to becoming a bike trail. But if you look at the way that this is laid out, it took a lot of effort. And if you haven't read the report, it's about 160 pages. They sent out requests to people by mail doing a scientific survey. They had 1,800 responses to it. This is what people talked about Main Street being your main street is where businesses are. What you're forgetting is that if you take this option B that you're talking about, you're going to lose the parking in front of these businesses, and the businesses are struggling right now. And I think if you take it a step back and think about this, in 18 months, we're going to have the BRT up and running. And if you're going to ride your bike, you could ride your bike to the ends of the BRT and bring it into town. We're going to have a new parking ramp in the north part of town that you can take the express bus down. So you don't really have to come to downtown, and everything is changing so much downtown. By taking those businesses away, taking that parking away, just doesn't make any sense to me. I offer the suggestion that we go to 20 mile an hour throughout the downtown core, get rid of right-hand turns on red. That would make it easier and better for bikes and safer. So in saying all of that, I'm going to wait to have that request done as far as getting that information from Public Works and having them look at my suggestion of 20 miles an hour and no right-hand turns on red. So I'm going to make a motion to table this matter.
Motion has been made to table this item. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Fredericks. A motion to table is not debatable, is it? Clerk Kasel, Attorney Spindler Craig?
That's correct.
So do we take a immediate vote?
That is correct.
Okay, call the roll.
Councilmember Keene.
Nay.
Councilmember Miller.
Nay.
Councilmember Wall.
Nay.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Yes.
Councilmember Palmer.
Hey.
Councilmember Doring.
Nay.
Council President Schubring.
Nay.
Motion fails 2 to 5.
Councilmember Fredericks.
So I'm in agreement with President Schubring on the second option, the Second Avenue option. I don't understand why we don't just pursue that right out of the gate. Is it just for speed to have a connection sooner on First? Because there's no parking implications. I don't see any like red flags for businesses on that. You said it's already designed to operate as that. Why don't we just have that conversation and pursue that option then?
Can you speak to Second Avenue
Council President
Southwest?
Fredericks, I think the primary concern, understanding Mayo's multiple pickup and drop-off points during construction, they plan to use Second Avenue to run campus shuttles until through 2030. So outside of a legal process where we attain rights sooner, it's really going to put a crimp in their long-term plan over the Bull Forward and Bound construction phase to the way they plan to get people in and out of the clinic. So, and this also plays into like West Gonda, drop-off is going to be no longer available. There are different points they're used to using come and go as streets become available. So really, Second Avenue is that one corridor that remains open for business. They've been valeting on the south side of the Mayo Clinic building on Second Avenue. When Link BRT starts to run in 2027, those are the red business access transit lanes. They can't run valet off of Second Street anymore.
I heard you just say it ain't quick enough.
So, yeah, I think we would need to wait unless it would cause major disruption to the construction and the arrival of patients and the movement of people around the Mayo Clinic during the construction.
Councilmember Wall.
Thank you. I agree with President Schubring and with Andy. I think Second Street is the better route. And instead of considering roadblocks, I'd like to work toward how can we get to yes rather than just say, here's why we can't do it, here's why we can't do it, how can we get to it? Other cities, particularly European cities, have found their way around trams and trains and cars and pedestrians and bikes, and they have a lot more people than we do. We can do it. We can do it. I will vote against the motion. It's better, B is better than A. I will vote against it primarily because of parking and supporting downtown businesses. I reached out to a business leader today, and she was kind to write back and said business owners rely on those spaces. Grab-and-go sandwiches, bank lobby, restaurants all need the perception of easy access, even if it's not easy. Not one business owner supports losing parking spaces. I'm not sure that's entirely right. I think I got an email today from a business owner that does support that. It's not so much bike lanes, it's the loss of parking. So I think Second Avenue is the better option, and I would like to use that and then hopefully work on Broadway so that we can take the Highway 63 moniker and look off of it and make it look more like a city street that has been brought back to us like we have done on North Broadway. So I would love to use long-range planning to, if it's 5 years, 7 years, my gosh, we've got projects longer than that.
Councilmember Miller.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just echo what several of our colleagues have brought up. I will support the motion because I think it is an interim solution to being able to work towards Second Avenue. And I would just condition my comments as I think in many ways we're choosing between two interests downtown and who gets to decide whether First Avenue or Second Avenue is used. And I would like to see how we move towards Second Avenue. But in the situation where that is completely impossible, I think we need an interim connection in this 18-month period time frame. I think we need to monitor the data. I'll just mention when I was in Portland, Oregon, there was a bike pedestrian transit bridge, and every time you walked over it or biked over it, it ticked up one and it displayed it and it said crossings today, crossings year to date. And so there was never any question of how many people were utilizing that. And I'll just note the elephant in the room is the size of a vehicle versus the size of a person. And when we only see private property stored in the public right-of-way, it does feel overwhelming. And I would love to say that every one of those cars parked on the curb is getting a sandwich or going to the bank or using those exact businesses that we want to support. And I just suspect that's not true. I would like us to study that data as well, perhaps working with our partners at RDA, to better answer that question of who is on the street, who's parked on the curb. And I also think that we have the capability to work with our non-Mayo downtown businesses on programs that appropriately manage the supply at the curb and also access for customers and employees, because we have a Civic Center South lot that's quite cheap for daily parking, much cheaper than the ramp, much cheaper than the street paying at the meter. And I don't know that that's well known and advertised to downtown business owners and employees that that is accessible, because I see Mayo employees walking from the southeast lots every day into downtown and walking in the evenings. And if that's a possible distance for downtown employees to travel, I wonder why it's not more utilized for Civic Center South to get into downtown along the trail, roughly the same distance, the same time, a similar employee profile. So I would like us to learn how, and this goes well beyond the motion, but I think these are topics that we can talk about the supply, we can talk about the infrastructure. We have to talk about the programming that helps people navigate in all ways that infrastructure. So I would like to see how we work on that issue. There was a rate study a couple of years ago that reprioritized the use of the street and the ramps and reset the rates. And I wonder if that's not the time to bring an update on that and think about how we advance that work again to better manage this precious public space. And I just think that as we've gone through all these stakeholder processes, we have an established stakeholder set of groups, set of interests. We know who's downtown. And I would really want to prioritize the non-Mayo stakeholders in understanding this use of our downtown. And the comment also came up that the 3rd Street ramp is quite full. I've seen that too. It's more full than normal. like to see how we get that access back so that we're not negotiating over 16 or 20 spaces on the street, but we really understand where the parking is, how it is appropriately allocated to the users, and we're managing the curb. And I'll just say too, I support Councilmember Palmer's comments about right turn on red and lowering the speed limit, but I recognize that that requires enforcement, and I don't suspect we have a staffing model to enforce that appropriately. And I will support this tonight, but I think we need to continue this conversation in additional study sessions and additional work. I would like to see how we go north of West Center Street and access the Soldiers Field Park to the south as well, but I recognize that that's beyond what we're being asked to do tonight.
Councilmember Doring.
Yeah, despite the flaws I see in the First Avenue option B, I will be supporting it tonight as well, but I'm wondering and really debating if I put a time limit on that support. Whether we indicate this as a council, that this is an interim use policy that's set in place for 18 months, and really give a time frame to press negotiations with the private property owner downtown to give us access to Allenberg Plaza and see if that is a possibility.
Councilmember, do you want to put that in a amendment?
Yes,
That is
I would
your
like,
option.
I don't know. I'm debating it.
Mr. Sampson Brown, did you have something to add while council
Yes,
members?
if I may add some context, just in terms of when's the right time to make a decision, 3 major milestones I think are coming up in about the next 18 months. First one, by the end of 2026, 4 new Mayo parking ramps will come online. None are open today. That is going to change the way people park downtown. Exactly how? We'll need to measure that as it was suggested, but that's something that can't start until November 26. In December 26, the downtown transfer for RPT will move back downtown. That's over 1,200 riders a day, 1,200 potential customers. So again, we'll see, that'll be happening a block north of here. So we'll see how that foot traffic, does everyone just jump on a bus or do they wander down First Avenue? That will give us some guidance on pedestrian footage. And then of course, August of 2027, Link BRT starts running, 11,000 riders projected on day 1. To me, after those 3 major milestones are achieved, we'll have a general idea, and the downtown major east-west streets, 2nd Street, will all be open. Yes, there'll be work to the north in Kutzke neighborhood, but to me, by August of 27, we can really start getting a sense of what does the new downtown Rochester function like in terms of active transportation. Where do people want to go? Because there'll be enough streets open, they can actually get to many of the places, not all, where they'd like to go. And that would be a good time to really start measuring in earnest with a real data set that's more predictable and reliable moving into the future. So just want to add that.
Councilmember Doring.
Yeah, I'll plan to not amend the motion on the floor and support this motion, but I would encourage us not to wait until 2027 to gather those data points. I would like to see a before and after of all the things that you have just described.
Clerk Kaso, can you call the roll?
Councilmember Keen.
Aye.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember Wall.
Nay.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Nay.
Councilmember Palmer.
Nay.
Councilmember Doring.
Aye.
Council President Schubring.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-3.
Other discussion points on this agenda item? I know we had several other pieces. There was the 6th Avenue south of 2nd Street. We did have some discussion on Broadway. Any further discussion on any of those pieces, council members? Councilmember Miller.
Well, I guess a question for staff. Are there grant opportunities to pursue for connection of those pieces, particularly the 6th Avenue one, in the timeline of construction? I believe that was a medium-term possibility.
And forgive me, Councilmember Miller, you're talking about the section on 6th Avenue
From
South.
2nd Street Southwest to 4th Street.
4th Street Southwest. I think first we have to, what I failed to mention when we talked about it before is, but I think you're all aware, there's a slope there, so we'd have to understand what that means in terms of constructability, design and constructability. And yeah, if there's a funding opportunity, we will pursue it. It could also be something that if we don't spend the entire $480,000 on First Avenue and you direct us to put some of those dollars towards that, like we can develop a list of talking points for you to consider related to that.
So would that come back to us with further refinement of this design of the motion that just passed? As costs go in and we understand the amount being used, would that be an appropriate point to discuss remainders?
Sure, we can bring back an
Potential other
update.
funding sources? Okay.
Absolutely, we can bring an update.
Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, just on that same discussion, I just asked staff to reassess the whole, the agreement made on vacating 3rd and 4th Avenue was to reconnect the thing. And I think the way the dollar amount was worked out was we had vacated 2 city streets, 2 blocks long, and did some math on that. But as we go through these discussions, we're finding that we're actually needing to replace 4 city streets in 2 directions. And maybe the funding doesn't quite cover that. So just something to consider with our negotiations with Mayo. I know Mayo turned over the money based on the city is the one who defines streets and how they should run, and I agree with that. But I think it's worth reassessing if the dollar amount was correct, considering that we weren't ending at 2nd Street because we don't travel on 2nd Street. We were going to 4th Street. So it's a bigger relocate than I think we're funded for.
Okay, thank you, team. Great job. Next on our agenda is H4, which is updates to the council rules of procedure and code of conduct. And this is an item from our consent agenda that I pulled, and I pulled it primarily for the section on how we deal with council-initiated actions. I didn't feel the language changes really clarified the how we use CIAs. And so I asked Deputy Administrator Parrish to really look at the language so that it's clear, because I think CIAs were initially developed as a way for council members to bring things forward to their colleagues and then ask staff to devote time and resources into researching and preparing an item to come back to the council. But we know in the last actually 2 months, we've had a few resolutions that came through CIAs where the council was ready to make a decision on that CIA that evening. So I wanted to make sure that we had flexibility as a council to be able to take those resolutions and items where we as a body can make a decision that evening, but also ensure that we're also able to use the CIAs for the purpose of devoting staff and resources to further study. So, Mr. Parrish, did you want to present what you drafted to tighten that language up, or?
Yeah, Your Honor, there's 3 options, and Ann, if or Heather, if you could pull those up on the screen. Option 1 really just refines the language slightly, but then says if you do want to take action on an item, you have the ability to do that by suspending your rules, which is really the case with most things with the rules, but that does require a 5 out of 7 vote, so there's a little bit of a higher standard if you wish to bring that forward for action that particular evening. When we initiated council-initiated actions a while back, the focus really was to provide research, bring back a recommendation that the council then could adopt at a subsequent meeting. But as you acknowledged, Council President, there are times where things certainly are more contemporary and in need of consideration. So then the second option would really kind of soften that a little bit and say it is not anticipated that council action will be taken on an item, and that the CIA is really directed to direct staff time. So it doesn't mean you can, it's just not anticipated. So it softens it a little bit. But still orients you in the direction of it being a two-step process, but doesn't preclude it in this particular case. I mean, if you'll note, we tried to walk both of these changes with this evolution of mayor-initiated action requests. So the process is in essence the same. And these are, just modifications to existing language. And then last is you could certainly approve any of these other two rule changes that are included this evening with regard to remote participation. Well, I think it's really that one. And you could ask us to bring back some language, based on your feedback and conversation tonight for consideration at a different date. So if you have a particular one you want to make a motion around, option 1, 2, or 3, we're certainly happy to answer any questions. And did I catch everything, do you think? Okay.
So we're going to start with the discussion. Councilmember Wall.
I am going to stray just a little bit from that to go to the mayor-initiated action. That's novel nomenclature to me. I don't recall hearing those words when we were talking about council rules, and I thought that what was coming back to us was a reflection of what we had talked about as a council. So when I was reading through this, I wondered where the MIA came from.
Yeah, and an unfortunate acronym probably.
Yes.
So certainly, I could go through all the funny acronyms.
None of
we've
us
had at
were
the
here
city.
when this was discussed. We are all MIA.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I am maybe City Attorney Spindler Craig wants to throw me a lifeline here, but I think the goal here was to align the CIA and MIA process together. There is a little bit of difference with the mayor's current ability to add actions to the agenda. In essence, there isn't, like, you all have to find a friend to do this. In her case, that's not the case. She has the ability to put things on the agenda. I think it was really just an effort to provide clarity and alignment between the two processes. But with that, I'll defer to City Attorney Spindler Craig if I missed anything.
And I'm going to go to first Mayor Norton, since this impacts her most directly.
Well, this took me by surprise, to say the least. I'm not a council member. And so when we keep trying to align, and we've been doing this a number of times, I don't have the privileges of voting for things like you do. There are differences. I'm the CEO of the city. I'm not a council member. And so for me, when I see something like this, it is a demeaning action toward the office of the mayor. And I'm very concerned when this hadn't come up, and now we have this kind of language. And I will say a couple things that are difficult to understand the thought process here. Currently, our office, and historically, our office does RCAs for boards and commissions. We don't do CIAs. We don't do MIAs. We do RCAs. My staff puts together the RCA for boards and commissions that come to the meeting that these guys vote on. We do RCAs for travel permission. We put together the RCA. It goes in the packet through Allison, through the county administrator, or the city administrator. And I think there have maybe been 2 other times that an RCA was used that wasn't on one of these standard topics. It's rare. I was taken aback by this language, and it does not allow me to do my job in the current roles that I'm doing it by putting these rules and regulations. And in fact, because it was tried to be paralleled with the council, it says it could not come for a vote, that I would put together a CIA for board and commission members that would come to you, that you would say, oh, okay, it's okay for you to put together an RCA for a board and commission appointee. I mean, there are 100 and some board and commission members. I don't do 100 a year, but I do probably 40 or 50 a year. And so it just doesn't make sense. And so I would please ask that this be removed and leave the initial language as it is, not treating me like a council member, but treating me like the mayor of the city with the responsibilities that have historically been with this office.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add also, and I agree with the mayor, I would support not including 2.03C, which I think is the changes to 2.03C. I also think the added language to 2.03B is unnecessary because and it puts further restrictions on us as a council that we didn't have a month ago. We passed two resolutions without suspending the rules. So I'm really concerned with language, and I don't know that we discussed this at length during our study session, but I'm really concerned with putting in language that puts added shackles on our council. I think we've done, in my tenure in the last year, a good job of distinguishing between CIAs that need research and staff time and CIAs that we know that our public want us to make a decision on quickly. So I think actually I would make a motion to remove, well, I don't know what I know we're looking at the entire rules and guidelines, but I would remove both the changes to 2.03B and 2.03C. And
so maybe, Your Honor, if I don't want to
Go
speak
ahead.
for you here, but maybe you'd want to make a motion to approve removing the proposed changes in those two sections.
Yes, that motion, and second by Councilmember Fredericks. Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, I was just going to add some context here, but do you guys want to speak first since it's your motion?
I think I did
Okay,
speak
all right.
to my motion.
Yeah, again, I do remember we had some discussion on the 2.03B in our discussion, and part of it was the old history, and this is something that, it's hard to keep up with, but the history with council-initiated actions was to get staff time. It wasn't the way we've been using them lately. And I know there's some concern with that and on both sides of concern, obviously on the council side that says, no, we need to do something this week as opposed to bring something in. But I think there is the worry from a staff perspective that we'll end up with something in the council-initiated actions, and all of a sudden, the other council members are voting on something that they didn't expect to. And I think that's what I read this language to be protecting from. It was to go back towards more of the idea of, on a normal council-initiated action, it would be for the council to discern whether staff time should be spent on that. And the exception being, and that's suspending the rules. The exception being is no, we're going to take action right now. I'm not so much weighing in one side or the other, but giving that sort of background to it. And I think that's where it came from. As far as adding the mayor stuff, I don't remember I don't think we had a discussion on it. I don't think it necessarily belongs in here, but at the same time, it is a way of saying it's a collection of here are the different things that can get on the agenda. And I think I thought the idea was, and this is the old, going back to 2015, before my day, before Councilmember Palmer, where it was who had control of the agenda and did council have the ability to say, I need this on the agenda? And that was debated back in those days and changed. And I think now we're talking about no, we want more control of it. And that's something that I'm trying to get comfortable with.
Further discussion on this? So, go ahead, City Attorney Spindler Craig.
Thank you. I would echo some of Councilmember Keen's comments there about what the discussion was that we heard from you as we discussed the rules. And I do want to be clear with the body that we weren't attempting to make something up here. We thought we were reflecting what you discussed. Not only what you discussed that night, but the discussions that we had on a number of prior occasions related to CIAs. And there was a theme that developed of each of you at times were putting your colleagues into tough spots because you were bringing CIAs and ready to vote on them. And we heard from various angles that some of you felt that these had been sprung upon you, that you didn't have time to review them, and suddenly you're rushed to a vote, okay? So I do want to be clear with the body that we were attempting to reflect what we thought we were hearing from you, that you generally don't want to be doing that to each other, okay? Recognizing that for each of you, when it's your CIA, sometimes you want it to move forward quickly, right? So you kind of do it to each other, but it seemed that your conversation was you kind of wanted to put a little bit more of a hurdle in front of that process, right? So that was part of what we were trying to reflect. Here's the other challenge that is created by that dynamic, is the whole point of the CIA is that staff is trying to hear from the body that you want us to spend time on this topic. And what we end up with instead at times is if the hard push is coming to us and we know that the CIA authors want to vote right away, right? They want action. They want to spend money. They want to pass a resolution. They want to do something like that. Then we're already in a position where we need to spend a bunch of time on that topic, right? Because if we see that you have a resolution, a draft resolution, that you want the body to vote on right away, we need to try to get that into a form where we think the body can digest it, consider it, give it thought, and vote on it that night. So it really has the effect of putting staff in a position where we're needing to dig in and spend a bunch of time on it, even though it's still just a CIA and the body hasn't really directed us to do that. I think you've seen that play out on some of your recent CIAs. Maybe you're okay with that. Maybe you want it to continue that way, but I thought that the discussion that you had was in part an attempt to avoid some of those situations.
Thank
Maybe
you.
that's enough on that topic.
Thank you for your very clear clarification.
Just the other piece of the mayor's piece, I would also just say, like, yes, to Mr. Parrish's point, those provisions read in parallel previously, like that isn't, the concept isn't new, right? Those provisions were meant to be parallel and read in parallel previously. So to the extent that we were putting that concept, editing the language for the CIA and what the expectations were, we thought that it made sense to make it parallel with the mayor's language as well. But you should understand that the concept of the mayor bringing a similar action, something similar to the CIA, isn't new. Those were your prior rules.
Yeah, and I did see that as naming it. It was prior to that a request. Other council members want to be heard on this item? Councilmember Miller.
So I guess I appreciate Councilmember Keene bringing up the context. I do remember that discussion about how we bring the CIA potentially as a point of discussion that's likely to receive action at a future meeting. The point that I think starts to build up, though, is having a review period of 15 business days, only then to have it on a council discussion. It feels like it extends the process quite long, up to 5 weeks. And I wonder if there's a point of understanding that. If it's just, well, 2 council members fill out a form and put it on the next agenda, if it doesn't start with staff review, I think that that's a different process. But I think this does both, as written, as proposed. It puts that 3-week review period, and it puts it on to the following council meeting, which I think is the pushback I'm feeling like it's limiting council's ability. And obviously, we could suspend the rules. But I suspect this is going a little bit further in the discussion that I heard. I think that would be my concern, is the 5 weeks of potential time between a form being filled out and actually council action. It's quite a long glide path.
Okay, so Councilmember Doring.
Thank you, Councilmember Miller. I agree with that. I'm wondering, we have a mechanism now to not take action on a CIA at any meeting by tabling a CIA, which is also in our purview and doesn't require a change of the rules. I'm also wondering what the difference is, and I heard you speak about this, City Attorney, and I appreciate the time and effort. I'm taken aback a little bit by the idea that reviewing a CIA and being prepared to make a decision on it is any different than any other item on our agenda, which is published, again, the Wednesday before a meeting. When we have no clear indication what every single item is on the agenda and a review period for those items as well. We are asking simply the same thing to take action with 4 days of review as we do for every other item on our agenda. So it's a little troubling to me to hear the feedback that we need more time to make a decision when we haven't really adopted any rule to have other items placed on our agenda have a longer glide path, to use the language that Council President Schubring uses a lot, to make informed decisions. I think we're making a distinct separation, and I think it limits our ability to listen to our constituents and be the spokespeople for those who we were elected to serve in this community. So that's my opinion about this.
Okay, seeing no others to speak, we have a motion on the table to accept the rules and guidelines with, except for the changes to 2.03B and 2.03C. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 5-2. Moving on to H5, Minnesota Office of Justice Programs 2026-2028 Crisis Response Grant. This was pulled by Councilmember Wall. Mr. Wall.
Thank you. I pulled it for two reasons. One is I think it's a really good demonstration of the Rochester Rochester Police Department's recognizing needs of the community in terms of mental health, and would love to have them talk a little bit about that so that we and the public are even better informed as to our response to people in need of those services. And then also that the council, I'm sure, is very well aware that perhaps after 23 or 24 months, if this is something that is very well received, that it could come back to us as a responsibility for funding going into the future.
Thank you. Captain Hodgman, would you like to give a little?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Councilmember Wall, for that. The Police Department is currently seeking approval to apply for the Minnesota Department of Public Safety Crisis Response Grant. This is in order to sustain and to strengthen a service model that we are currently demonstrating with measurable results. As Council will recall, last March, we entered into a contract with Terry Dose, who is acting as our persons experiencing homelessness navigator. That position was funded through the one-time public safety funds, and those dollars will be ending at the end of this year. This role has allowed us to really create a true proof of concept here in Rochester. Through our focused outreach, our coordinated engagement, and persistent follow-up, we are moving individuals from repeated crisis contacts into stabilization and to services while we're strengthening the coordination between law enforcement, community partners, and social services. If awarded this grant, this would fund this position for the next 2 years. It does not obligate the city long term. It is an opportunity for us to pursue the external funding to continue to model this model that is working and to thoughtfully evaluate the sustainability before we enter into anything that is more long term.
Thank you. Any questions? Is there a motion on this item?
If I had it up, I would make the motion to approve.
I'll move to authorize the police department to apply for the 2026-2028 Department of Public Safety, Minnesota Office of Justice Programs Crisis Response Grant.
Motion made by Councilmember Keen and seconded by Councilmember Fredericks. Anything to add? Councilmember Wall.
I love stories. Can you just give us one story that says, here's how we have used this to the benefit of the public?
Absolutely. Thank you. So Terry is, one of the things that she does is provides us with a lot of stories about her contacts that she's had. And there's a lot of people, without giving you names, faces that I know that you would very easily recognize from just being in the downtown area. And these are people who, based on their current situation, have not been able to get into housing for months or get into treatment for months. And Terry, alongside with our CAT team, going out there and being persistent with them, getting them into those spots where maybe they feel like today's the day, we've been able to place a lot of people into services that are either here in Rochester in our housing options or getting them out to treatment, maybe outstate, where they come back to Rochester and they're living productive lives as citizens in our community.
Councilmember Miller.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate Councilmember Wall pulling this item, and also Captain Hodgman, you're coming tonight. I remember the last time we had a discussion about some of the challenges downtown. I asked Chief Franklin, how do we scale this up? If it's working so well, how do we move it up? So I'm glad to see this attempt to scale up our ability to provide service for people in a difficult time in their lives. And I also appreciate Councilmember Wall bringing up the nature of grants and how we build in sustainable programs. And I just wonder if how we think about an overall operational analysis of some of our public safety services. I mean, it is nearly 60% of our general fund, which is significant and important, but just how we understand the needs that we want to see rather than there's a grant application so we could add it in. And I just want to understand how we're thinking about grants, and are we being driven to change our operations based on available grants, or are we proactively seeking grants that meet our strategic goals?
Administrator Parrish.
Your Honor, and Councilmember Miller, I think it's yes and all of that. I mean, so we're in a process of continually evaluating, how do we maximize and optimize our response in many areas. Our teams are obviously, going through some continuous improvement efforts on an ongoing basis. We have had conversations in the past about, is there opportunity to do a larger evaluation of, core services, and we've done program reviews and things like fleet and, name the city service. And so we could talk as a staff again and see what options might exist. Okay. Police, fire, et cetera. I mean, obviously fire's got a lot of transformation happening too. And as you're looking at adding another station, these public safety evaluations do take place. We've had some conversation. Maybe it wasn't quite with the current council, but in the past, I know the police chief reported out on some benchmarking and metrics that, they had completed with, we'll call it peer agencies. And so we can think about how we best bring forward some ideas for you all in that space.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Doring.
Just for my colleagues, at our next study session, I will be presenting a little bit about the AnyPath Home Initiative and Terry's work with the service providers here in this community for those experiencing homelessness has been, I can't speak highly enough of the stories they share about her involvement with those individuals, and her involvement has been part of the success metrics of that initiative that I'll be happy to share with you at our next study session as well.
Thank you, Councilmember. Seeing no other anyone else who wants to be recognized, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes. Moving on to our council-initiated we have no council-initiated actions. And moving on to ordinance first readings. Go ahead, Mr. Spindler Craig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item J1, an ordinance rezoning approximately 2.71 acres of land located south of Highway 52 Southeast and east of Highway 63 South at 77 Wood Lake Drive Southeast from LI Light Industrial to MXG Mixed Use General, and amending ordinance number 4478, known as the Unified Development Code of the City of Rochester, Minnesota. Moving on to item J2, an ordinance rezoning approximately 1.2 acres of land located northwest of the intersection of 7th Avenue Southwest and Center Street West from R2X, low-density residential infill, to R3, medium-density residential, and amending ordinance number 4478, known as the Unified Development Code of the City of Rochester, Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Next up, we have other business. First item on our other business is we are now recessing to the Rochester Economic Development Authority meeting, and I will call the meeting to order. And first item is our consent agenda. We have the minutes of the February 2nd, 2026 meeting on our consent agenda. Is there a motion to pass the consent agenda? Moved by Councilmember Fredericks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Miller. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes. We have no public hearings. We have one report and recommendation, which is the Development Assistance Agreement relating to the City Walk Apartments for Tax Increment Financing, District Number 85-1. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Council President, Mayor, council members, and I guess in this case, EDA members. Tonight, as President Schubring said, we're requesting approval for the Development Assistance Agreement for the Citywide Project, TIF District number 85. You may recall that about this time last year, May, we were here for the City Walk where we established the TIF plan. Since then, the City Walk team has been working on getting their financing in order and working on connecting with an equity investor. They've accomplished both of those items, along with many other conversations and meetings that we've had over the last year. So now we're in an expedited period where if tonight the DAA gets approved, they're looking at closing on the site in April and then start construction in June. We're looking at about a 25-month construction period. So even so, the Development Assistance Agreement requires the project to be completed by December 31st of 2028. Not much has changed with the development, so I'm going to be pretty brief tonight. But it is a 13-story residential building, 342 total units. The project project total investment cost is just shy of $140 million. To put that into scale, that is the largest multifamily development that Rochester's ever seen. Not accounting for inflation, the Berkman, when that was built, cost $115 million. So if it were built today, of course, it would be much more, but this is the largest private investment for multifamily project we've seen. A couple of the other amenities that I just wanted to mention, because we had a robust conversation about 6th Avenue, is this site does feature bike parking garage right off of 6th Avenue. We'll take advantage of that bicycle track. So the site transformation itself, as I mentioned with the private investment, why that matters is the current estimated market value for the site is $3.1 million. The minimum assessment agreement that we agreed with the Olmsted County on is $86 million. So that's roughly a 2,600% increase in property tax value growth. That's a heck of a return on investment. The other element there, just to put it into context, is the owner of this site also developed the Riverwalk Apartments just across the river there. Very nice, about 152 units. That apartment's currently valued at $24 million. So this project, the minimum assessment will be 3.5 times what Riverwalk is currently valued at. So just to put that into scale, and also this site is actually smaller than the riverfront site. So we're talking about a lot of density in a high employment sector with public transportation right across the street. The other things that I wanted to mention is the site was considered blighted. Whenever we're doing a redevelopment district, the statutory requirement is that it needs to pass the blight test. So here in the city of Rochester, we put the onus on the developer to actually work with a certified engineer or certified architect to create an independent blight analysis or blight study, which in this case they did. And that blight study has to meet very specific criteria per state legislation for redevelopment TIF districts. The other things that I just want to highlight too are, as part of the construction of this project, they're going to be improving the turning movement from 2nd Street turning south on 6th Avenue, where right now you sort of have this odd, quick turn lane turning right onto that section. They're going to realign that street so it's more of a 90-degree angle. It'll be safer for traffic, safer for pedestrians, and really help align the vision for that 6th Avenue corridor. That also gives us the opportunity to create a larger public realm space on that corner. Here you see in the picture, it's not going to look exactly like this, but one of the elements is going to be a functional stormwater management feature that will look good and provide some stormwater management for the site. One, I think, unique and creative thing, I don't think it gets enough credit, but we are actually, because of the current owner of the site owns the adjacent apartment complex to the west and to the south, we are requiring that owner, per agreement, to go into a 20-year agreement, so you can only do 10-year increments with the county's 4D program, but putting it into 2 rotations for the 10-year 4D housing, which preserves 100% of those units at 60% AMI or less for a minimum of 20 years. This with Mayo Bold Forward and Bound, with the City Walk development, it's only going to put more and more economic pressure on this area. Land values are getting higher. Redevelopment's becoming more attractive. So in order to maintain our naturally occurring affordable housing, which is a priority in our housing spectrum, our housing ecosystem. And really the only way that's achievable or attainable is direct assistance. In this case, we're providing direct assistance to the City Walk Department, but also getting the benefit of these being put into the 4D program.
Mr. Johnson, can I ask a question about those? So they own those 2 properties. They're preserving the 67 units, which that's the number of units that are there now. Are they doing anything to renovate those properties?
Yes, thanks, Council President. So the building to the south was in better condition. They have done some improvements just in terms of paint, carpeting, lobby. The apartment complex to the west, which is 39 units, was in a bit more disrepair when it was acquired by the current developer, or the current owner, I should say. They did put in about $300,000 to do painting all the doors, painted the walls, the carpet. They worked on the kitchens, including cabinet refreshes, new lighting, new carpet, new amenities. So the actual owner of those is also the developer of the Riverwalk, also developer of the Red 44 apartments. They also own a project management company, which is going to manage those properties as well as this property. And they take a lot of pride in, not only the condition of the units, but also the customer service of the tenants of those units. So it's not going to be a passive ownership by any means.
Thank you. Councilmember Wall.
We had a speaker right at the beginning who said that he has been through the buildings and didn't find blight. How do we define blight, and what was the blight in these buildings?
Yeah, so blight is actually, just to go high level, so 50% of the buildings on the site have to be considered substandard or structurally substandard. And in order to prove that, they have to look at what portions of the building don't meet current building code. And if the buildings can be brought into compliance to state building code for less than 15% of the cost to construct a similar building of similar materials, then it meets the blight assessment test. So it's basically like, what does it cost to renovate it, bring it back to current building code? And if that cost is more than 15% of just building a new building, then it meets the blight test, among some other things, but that's kind of the general test.
So it kind of sounds like an older building that's just a little run down. All of them are going to be blighted to a degree.
Yeah.
Okay. Because other buildings will be raised, what will the reduction in affordable housing be in terms of units once this is complete?
Yeah, so the Heffron House currently, I believe, has 10 units.
Okay.
So if we look at, the City Walk site as well as the adjacent apartment complexes, we're at 77 units. If the Heffern House gets raised, demolished, then we're at 57 net naturally occurring affordable housing units. But we're also gaining 342 market rate units.
Market rate, yep.
Yep.
I don't think I read what the length of the TIF is.
The length of the TIF, it's always an either or test. So it's a 25-year TIF term, unless the total principal gets paid off before reaching that 25-year term, then the district can be either decertified or used for other applicable or suitable purposes.
And it's currently a 3.1 million evaluation. What would that bring in annual taxes?
I wouldn't be able to do the math on site, and there's a mixture of commercial and multifamily, so there's going to be a different tax classification rate for those uses. You could probably just take 2.5% or 2%, I should say, and you're going to get relatively close. And I'm not going to do that math in my head.
Well, that's $60,000. So we'll continue to get that for the next 20, 25 years.
Exactly. That value is frozen for the next 25 years.
But then after that, that's the 86 million valuation, depending upon inflation and all that great stuff. Yep.
Yeah, and like I say, 86 is the minimum. So if you tracked what the Berkman did, that paid itself off significantly faster than we originally anticipated. But yeah, that's when you see your windfall is once it gets back in the tax records.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Palmer.
We've spent a little bit of time today on 6th Avenue and the road. Is this going to be designed to match the cycle track that we currently have?
So I,
But
took
it's
some
on the
time.
other side of the road, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That's the answer.
That's the answer. And then I have a problem with people using naturally occurring housing. To me, that means they don't have any federal or any state or any city money into it. So you're just saying that we don't have any money in those two out lots? Is that what you're saying?
No direct funding into those two.
Okay, and then the third one, and I'm going to follow up on what Mr. Wall said. We had an expert this afternoon who's talked about this being blighted, and now you have an expert, so do you go off of the expert that actually did the results and looked at it?
Yeah, so in this case, Woodseth Engineering is the expert, and we also have our TIF attorney review the blight assessments just to make sure that everything is legally, compliant with state statute.
Good, I just want to check on that. Thanks.
Any other, Councilmember Keen?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused too by Councilmember Palmer's with, you use naturally occurring affordable housing, but then you say it's in the 4D program. I thought the 4D program was a program where the landlord will get the rent differential.
No, the 4D program is really just a tax benefit.
Just tax treatment of the property itself. Well, again, if you're getting that tax treatment, I don't know why you say it's naturally occurring.
Well, they have to, the rents are capped, of course. So, but for them putting those properties into the 4D program, which requires them to meet the requirements of the county's program, the alternative would be, you could put in some granite countertops, you could put on some new paint, you could charge market rate or workforce housing for it.
I guess I'm still trying to, if it's in the 4D program, there is government assistance by not charging taxes. I don't know why you would then also call it naturally occurring affordable housing.
Oh, yeah, I guess we'll just call it affordable housing.
Remaining affordable housing.
Remaining affordable housing.
Council President Schubring, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Yetzer.
I think the distinction there is, what they're saying is that it's currently naturally occurring affordable housing. Currently, it's not in the 4D program. It's currently naturally occurring affordable housing, and those units are being preserved.
Okay.
So you're right. After this program, you could make an argument that it's no longer naturally, but in the moment, it's naturally occurring, and but for this assistance, it may not be affordable housing anymore.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Is there a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve.
The motion made by Councilmember Palmer. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Fredericks. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn the EDA?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Miller, seconded by Councilmember Keen. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Moving back to our city council agenda, we are on other business. Is there a motion to adopt the findings of the Rochester our EDA?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Keen and seconded by Councilmember Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Is there any other business? Seeing none, is there? Seeing
moved.
none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Miller, seconded by Councilmember Doring. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. We're adjourned.
Have a good evening. I had to stick it to Barry.